What's up, everybody? Oh my goodness. Happy 2026. What? Guys, I'm so pumped to be here. I'm so pumped to be chatting with you. I was just reading one of the best Instagram comments I think I've ever gotten in a 2 seconds ago. So I'm in a fantastic mood. I already was in a great mood. I want to give you guys a couple, I want to call them warnings, but they're heads up more accurately for this time together. You can see I've got my board in the back. We're going to have so much fun today. Those of you who haven't been on one of my live trainings before, let me let you know how it's going to go down. Usually I do trainings like this where it's interactive and it's, I'm inviting you to have, it's almost an implementation day. I keep them private, right? So I put them at least behind a sign up, or they're most often in my mentorship and they're for private clients only, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for some reason, this year's energy hit different. And I felt like I want to help as many people with this as possible. I just want to have fun. I want to make this like a party. So for those of you who are here, say hi. Let me know that you can hear me. I sure hope you can, because my mic is about 2 inches from my face. And let me let you know how I tend to do things, okay? So I am going to walk you through a process that I have used and curated over many, many years. It's unbelievably effective, absolutely beautiful. It's funny, this comment I was referring to on Instagram was a woman saying quite a few things, but one of them, wow, God has brought you far. And that is so true. But I also believe that we are co-creators with God, okay? So a couple things to know. If you haven't been here on trainings with me before, I do love Jesus. I talk about God a lot. I talk about divine design and co-creating in many ways. I, however, also sometimes drop some choice words. So if you're not a fan of any foul language, I promise, Scout's honor, I will do my best, but I can't make any guarantees. I also make some jokes every now and then, friends. So I have a lot of fun. I'm a little bit, let's just say, goofy. But if you can handle a little bit of goofiness and a love of the Lord, but also a little tongue in cheek, we're going to have a lot of fun here. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through this process, but I'm also going to, as my clients know and have come to love, share a lot of my stories. Okay. So if you hop on here and you're like, why is she talking about some anecdote that she just lived through? It's because, one, I'm having fun and it's my stage. I'll do what I want, as I encourage you to as well, but also because it's an example. Right? I share anecdotes and little stories so that you can see what I've created, yes, but also how I created it. And probably most important of all, what my clients refer to as my mental syntax, how I thought both to create it and maybe thought through it if it wasn't what I was expecting to be, going through or handling at that time. So it's going to be a combination of stories with a bunch of jokes. I'll try, but I am in a phenomenally good mood. And so I imagine we might be a little extra goofy today, but I am going to walk you through this process. And I want to share with you a little bit about what the point is, what the goal is, and why it's a little different from other things you might find. This time of year, we're here in mid-January. It's January 17th as I am recording this, going live with this. There's a lot, right? There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of absolutely beautiful systems and processes and creative methods, if you will, for planning out, dreaming through, however, you like to do it, strategizing your year. And what I find is a lot of them are in either a very feminine energy, which I love. What I mean by that in this particular context is, what feels aligned, and, maybe we'll do a visualization and all these things. What do you want to bring into existence? These kind of birthing metaphors, et cetera, which, let me be clear, I love. And we may or may not do some of that today. I have this partially scripted, but I leave myself a lot of leeway. So we'll see where the spirit leads. On the other hand, there are people who are like, go hard. This is, it feels like January boot camp, right? Like, these are the first 3 months, the first quarter should be your entire year of accomplishment, and go, go, go. And that's cool too, right? There's strategy to it. There's a plan. It's extremely detailed. And I love parts of that as well, because things are definitely going to get done. I believe in marrying the two, the masculine and the feminine, so that you can have a strategy and you're going to get things done, but it's the things that you want to actually bring into existence and that are extremely aligned with you and that feel like what you're called to this year. Okay. So I like a blend of both. But then I realized as I was doing this for myself, because I follow and use and am inspired by many different coaches and creators, yearly planning methods, et cetera. And I go through a lot of them myself as a client or as a spectator, and I love them. But there was always something that was missing. And I always found myself needing to add like a little extra component or a little extra session or having to pause it and do my own thing and then come back into their process. And what I realized that it was this. I wanted to make sure that the year that I was planning was taking me toward my dream life. Okay? Because a lot of people will design a year that's either, ideally, right? Doesn't mean it happens, but it's ideally a more productive, profitable, even pleasurable version of the year before, right? It's essentially just an improvement on what they've already been doing. That's cool if that's what they want. Or it's a regurgitation of what they see around them. They're inspired by Instagram or other people's Instagrams or Pinterest or movies or whatever it is. And they try to create a life that someone else is living that looks like fun, that makes them want part of it. And so they go after that goal and they plan a year on the trajectory of someone else's success and someone else's, hopefully, dream life, right? And so they're headed in a direction, but it's not necessarily the direction that they actually want to go in, but they don't even know because they didn't stop to ask. So what I've done and what I've realized, and I really organically fell into this when I had a couple years where I was, hi, Gail. Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you here. Hello to you too. Happy New Year to you too. Is there were a couple years where I was very quiet. It was, there was a lot going on, okay, behind the scenes, but on the internet, I was quite quiet. And so I had a lot of reflection time and I had the opportunity to look at life as a blank slate. Of course, there was plenty of grief in that season as well, but there was an enormous amount of beauty. And what I realized is right now, I have the chance to live my life the way I've always wanted to, or I have the opportunity to continue or fall back into more of the same, right? To listen to people's advice that was, of course, well-meaning and create something that was practical or, proven or whatever it may be, and to not go after my wild, ridiculously, magnificently gorgeous dream life and instead just do something that made sense, something that was practical, something that was normal, something that was, in their opinion, responsible. I don't think there's anything responsible about having a life that you hate, especially when, there's a beautiful life that's just as responsible that you would love as an alternative. So I recognized that I wanted to design my year and I wanted to design my years in the trajectory of the life that I wanted. And I couldn't do that if I didn't know what life I wanted at all. Okay. So the theme and one of the big differences you're going to find here today is that we are going to take our time to look at what you want your life to look like. I'm talking like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 90-year-old version of yourself. What is she so stinking excited that you actually let yourself have? Okay. Now, as I do this, as I said, I'm going to share plenty of examples from my own life of what I've been allowing, what I've been stepping away from. We're going to do all of that stuff. But that is the big difference that you're going to find here today. Of course, I've got lots of little differences along the way. But that's why I call this your dream life activation, because yes, we are planning a magnificent 2026. We're going to figure out what feels good. We're going to strategize. We're going to calendar it. You have no idea how obsessed I am with calendars. Maybe I'll show you guys at the end. I'll certainly show you my new blank one. Maybe I'll even give you a peek at my old one. We'll see. But I plan and I strategize and I call it decorating my time. Okay. Because I don't want to feel like life is this long, endless to-do list. I want to feel like life is this magnificent blank canvas and I get to paint on it whatever I choose. Now, some of you may say, okay, well, that's great for you, Jackie, but I actually have like things I have to do. Look, I got things I got to do too. And I not only have things I got to do, I have things I have to deal with. I don't want to deal with, and yet I have to, right? And those are not limits. They're simply constraints. And some of our greatest creativity comes from constraints, right? I can say, I want to see life as a blank canvas. Well, there's certain colors and certain mediums that I might fantasize about using that don't exist, right? So I have to work even with a blank canvas within the realm of what's doable. However, so often we limit ourselves when we're saying, well, I have to think about what's doable, and we make it practical to the extent that it becomes so restrictive that our soul's no longer excited about our own life. And that is not what I want for you, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing today. And as we step into it, we're going to do a couple different journaling questions throughout. The first one, we are going to be taking a quick look back at last year, okay? Now, I was thinking earlier today, I've noticed over the last few years that I tend to spend almost all of January just looking back at and processing the previous year. And January has 31 days, friends, right? Is it 31 days? Yes. Okay. Just checking. 31 days. That's an enormous amount of time to process when many people are kind of running into the new. And I'm not saying that I'm also not planning the new, but I have learned that taking the time to really look back and learn from what I just lived is one of the absolute keys to making sure that I don't repeat what I don't want and that I do invite in what I do want. Okay. So that's where we're going to begin. Now, I have done this, as I said, really, really thoroughly. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my process so that if you haven't yet done this and it speaks to you, you can go do this in your own time. We're not going to do it here today. We're going to do something that's a quicker version of looking at the past year. But things that are helpful is, in fact, this year I was probably more thorough than ever. I took my journal from last year, which I got in Paris at a Tara Moreno event at the Ritz, which was baller. Thank you, Tara. And I literally came all the way to the last page. It was just absolute perfection. I reviewed each month from last year, 2 to 3 pages per month of what happened, what I learned, what I loved, what I did not like, and do not want to, go through again, the lessons of it. In other words, could I take away from this to know more about myself, to know more about life and what I like and how I want to design it and what I want to start saying a firm and absolute no to, henceforth and forever, right? So I took 2 to 3 pages for each month, January through December, and December ended up on the last page of the journal. It was perfect. So how do I remember what on earth I did? I pull out my phone and go to my photo application, whatever type of phone you have, and I go back, right? They can organize it by months. It's very, very helpful. And I scroll through and I just look at all of the pictures. I don't know if you guys take pictures, but I take pictures like nobody's business. It's very helpful. One, it's part of my job, but also it's how I remember what I did because I completely forget, And so I go through January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And I look at the photos that were taken, and therefore I realize where I was, who I was with, what I was doing, how I was feeling, what I created, what I participated in, what I possibly missed out on, what I loved about it, what I did not like about it, and kind of what that month gifted me. Okay. So I highly recommend that for you. I had done it loosely. And then as I went back thoroughly, it blew my mind how much I had almost missed, right? How much I had forgotten that occurred, and not even the things that occurred, but I'm sure you guys know the emotions, right? That's what I love about photos and videos so much. And I will often take little videos just for myself, even talking to them about, this is what's going on and this is how I'm feeling. It reminds me of where I was in that moment in an internal growth way, like what the experience was. One of the biggest things was last January, moving into this apartment here in Georgetown, right? This delightful little office apartment that I now have that's finally almost completely set up as a recording studio and where I've done so much client work this year. And when I first got here, it was empty, obviously, right? And yet I had so much that needed to occur here. And so all the furniture that was purchased and built by me, friends, and all the setup and organizing, and then my kids would come crash for a night and it would go chaotic and then I'd organize it again. So you just look back and realize, wow, that was this time last year. So anytime you're thinking, my gosh, I still have so much I want to accomplish, one of the big points of looking back at the last year as well is realizing how far you've come. Some people call this the wow brain versus the owl brain, meaning the owl brain sometimes is overwhelmed and maybe discouraged by the sense of how far we have yet to go between where we are and what we want. And the wow brain looks back and realizes how far you've come from where you were to where you are now, and you applaud yourself. And that gives you the emotional energy and even the physical energy, the hope, the excitement to continue, right? To carry on, to keep moving forward because you're aware of your capacity for creation and how far you've come so far. And so you have no doubt in your mind that you can absolutely go out there and conquer what you want next. Cool? So with all of that as prologue, 14 minutes in here, let's begin, okay? We're going to take a quick look back at last year. And the question I would love for you to answer, as I say these questions, I want you to feel, because you do, that you have full permission to tweak them as you like. If you don't like a word I use, if you, don't like an adjective, don't like a noun, feel like that's a weird question, I think I'll ask myself this one, do that. Okay, this process is designed to give you clarity, life, joy, It's designed to create, right? So why on earth would you forfeit your identity as a creator as you're going through someone else's guided creative process? Create something a little bit different if you prefer it, knowing your own power to create and to tweak, right? You can remix this. So if you don't love the question I use a slightly different one. But I would invite you to consider looking back at 2025. What did you love? Okay, first we're going to look at the positive. What did you love? Another way to phrase this is, what did 2025, or whatever year, for those of you who are going to watch this in the future, what did last year gift you? What gifts did it bring you? I know for me, one of the biggest gifts is my boyfriend, this man I have met and now been with for most of last year. Now we're in this year. Like, unforeseen, unbelievable, decadent beyond, thank you, Lord, gift to me. So many other things too, but this is where I want you to, just take a couple sentences. If you have a journal, I'm doing it a little casually right now on just loose paper from notepads that I have. Though, let me just show you this real quick. You guys can start writing, just ignore me. This beautiful journal that I'm busting out. I've been in a black and gold. Black, white, and gold are kind of some of my favorite colors, with red as well. Pink, not white, pink. Teal, blue. Anyway, this beautiful gold edged journal. It's like a black leopard crocodile kind of texture print. Found it at Home Goods. Best place for journals. Anyway, so I'm going to bust into that later, but first I'm going to do it casually here. What did you love about last year? What gifts did it bring you? And I'll give you guys about 3 minutes for this, okay? Okay, I actually only gave you about 1 minute. So if you need more time, keep writing. But what did you love about last year? What gifts did it bring you? So like I said, my relationship was a huge gift to me, is a huge gift to me. Being settled, more settled. I said settled. I thought about saying more, but settled in California and DC at a new level. It's an incredible gift. I'm so happy in both of my little spots right now. They're both almost fully organized. I feel like if I had to stay in both of these for the rest of my life, I'd be happy, which is crazy to say, and yet very true. Doesn't mean more isn't possible, but it means I'm very happy if this is what's up. Next level parish trips. It was insane. The Maria Edgeworth conference, which is, I always switch when I do it like this, back there in June, which is when I met my gorgeous boyfriend. October, Paris Fashion Week, walking the runway again after, I don't know, 8 years, something like that. Incredible. I was interested because I had not realized this until I answered this question, which is exactly why we do this. I loved teaching on stage and meeting people. There were a couple things about the context in which I was doing it that I didn't adore. So I was surprised to see this because I was like, I thought I was happy that that was over, but I liked that element of it. And that's very interesting to me, right? Because interesting, I want to make sure that that stays in my life, but in a different way. And then the time that I got to spend with my children who are getting older. And those of you who have kids who are, heading toward 10 years old, my daughter has just turned 10. We're celebrating her this weekend. I was just placing a phone call about getting a cake for her birthday. And they're more like grown-ups. We have more of it's not an adult relationship because they're still little kids, but they can have deeper levels of conversation and they understand things even more quickly without you having to explain it. And yet they're still little and they still want to cuddle and they still have big emotions and they still like to play with toys and want me to play with them. And it's awesome. So that combination has been delicious. Okay. Next quick question as we look back at last year. What did you not love? You knew that was coming, right? What did you not love about last year, man? What was like, no, thank you. No, merci. No more of that, please. What did you not love about last year? Or another way of saying it is, what would you like to leave behind? Right now, our next questions are going to take these a little tiny bit deeper, and then we'll be moving into the future. But this is critical because if we don't acknowledge, man, that freaking sucked, I do not want that anymore, then it becomes difficult to make sure we avoid it as we're planning the future. Because if it's been there, it's kind of a norm, right? There's momentum. And if we don't stop and say, this must end, I'm not doing that again, chances are we're going to experience it again, right? So what did I not love about last year? What did you not love about last year? Okay, fortunately, I didn't have too much on that list. It was a really beautiful year. So a couple things that I did not love about last year. It really was more about the beginning of the year than the first half of the year rather than the second half, but a theme that I was very grateful. This is another way you can phrase this question if it feels good to you. A theme that I'm happy to leave behind, right? Something that was a regular experience that was, common or even consistent, was people not meeting my effort and honesty. Oof. I'm just going to leave that one there and walk away. Just kidding, right? But when you're putting in a lot of effort in all kinds of different realms, right? It can be romantic, your relationship, it can be work, it can be friendships, it can be family, it can be whatever, it can be all of the above. But people who would let me do most of the work and had no problem with that, or would let me go out of my way for them and yet were nowhere to be found when I needed them. And then people who would not necessarily tell me the truth about things, or who I witnessed not telling the truth in other ways, right? And I'm just not interested, friends, right? Not interested. But that was really only the first half of the year, mostly. As I started to learn the lesson, I actually put things in place to start identifying and stepping away from other individuals who behaved that way. And then by the end of the year, they were all gone. It was awesome, actually. It was great. So we won't go into any more depth on that now. Certain travel locales. Won't go into detail there either, but there were certain places that I was regularly going to, and I kid you not, friends, I was just angry every time I would land. I mean, that's not entirely true. I don't really get angry about silly things like that, but where you're just like, dude, why am I here? You know what I mean? Like, I have a home in California. I've got an office in Georgetown. Why am I spending any time, let alone this much time, in a location that I 100% am not a fan of? If I can have so much control over designing things, why the heck am I here, right? And fortunately, that wrapped up kind of even, it was a mutual decision, but so happy to have had that released. And then last interesting thing, which isn't surprising to me, and there's probably more, you guys can always write down these questions. That's why I repeat them several times and come back as things occur to you, right? Because like I said, that's why I take all of January really to process the previous year. I'm iterating my responses. The number of times I've gone through what last year taught me, it's something new comes out every time, and each one educates how I'm going to shape the future. So fatiguing travel. One of the reasons I wanted this office apartment here was because I was exhausted, absolutely exhausted, going back and forth to DC, trying to meet, client deadlines and film things or go live on Zooms all the time, which fortunately I don't have to do as much as I used to. But I was doing a lot of things. I was hauling around this ring light. I was hauling around this mic. I was setting up at WeWork. I was setting up in hotel lobbies. And then, I'd have to check out of the hotel I was staying at. And it was 11 a.m., but the call started at 11. So could I get an extended, checkout time? No, you can't. I was like, it was chaos and I was fatigued. So this office apartment has changed my life. And yet I still find, and possibly even because it has gotten so streamlined and easy, that sometimes I cut it too close on getting to the airport in time. Does anybody hear me? It's that bag cutoff, friends. It sucks, right? I'm like, I could have made the plane, but my bag did not get in there in time, right? The worst feeling. And having to sometimes go back and forth to, one of my apartments because I didn't get the freaking bag cut off. So just noting that I have to pad more. Even though I have streamlined and systematized so much, I still have to account for things, right? Like one of the times I was trying to get back to California, I was leaving DC and I don't know what was going on in this city on that day. I think it was in October or September, perhaps. I don't know if the government was shut down yet, but it was what is normally a 15-minute ride to the airport took an hour. We just sat in absolute standstill traffic. The entire city was red. I've never seen anything like that. And I leave for the airport during that time of day regularly. So things like that, where it's like, okay, I have to add in more time. Even if I could get away with it sometimes, I can't sometimes. And the times that I can't are tiring. And so I'm not going to do that. Another thing, actually, on the topic of fatiguing travel, and this is perfect, right? Because I was telling you guys I'm going to tell some stories. So here's a story. I just got back from a week in France. I did not think I was going to go. I thought I was going to go back to California. And then I saw that it was snowing in Paris, friends. And all of the people I follow, my friends there, some of my favorite content creators were posting, the Eiffel Tower in the snow and the Pont d'Alexandre. If you guys know that beautiful bridge in the snow, the Louvre in the snow, the gardens. And I was just like, bucket list item. I happen to be free. Let me go see if I can get over there, right? And meanwhile, I'm texting my friends like, do you think it's still going to be there by Friday or whatever, right? And they're like, not a chance. It's already gone. It's already melted. And I'm like pretending not to hear, kind of. I still want to go. I want to see snow. So I booked a flight over there. It's actually cheaper than the flight to California at that time, and had a beautiful week, which I'll go into detail in the future when I talk about other things. But on the way back, I was heading back to the US. Very smooth day in many ways. But one of the things that I thought would be so chic and so easy on this trip, because I often have heavy bags, okay? I have 2 carry-ons, and sometimes they weigh your carry-ons depending on what type of ticket you buy. It frustrates the heck out of me, not gonna lie. And so I thought, well, that's fine. I'll just leave my computer bag behind this time. I'll just take my little duffel. I'll throw my laptop and my charger in case I happen to need that, and we'll roll. Right? It'll be totally easy. Well, the thing is, it doesn't roll. It doesn't roll at all. It has to be lugged. And so it rolls when I have my checked bag. But once I turn my checked bag in, it's just me and the most heavy duffel bag you've ever seen in your life on one shoulder or the other. By the time I was done and I got home, I was just spent, right? My whole body was was exhausted. And so I've learned that my first day after international travel is always a rest day. I can take maybe a couple client calls, but I have to plan to be able to sleep and stretch. I got a long massage, I got a beautiful facial, and now I feel like $1,000,000 again. But I thought, wow, that was a great lesson. I thought it would be easier to leave one of my bags behind, but because I left the bag that rolls behind, I'm instead, or I was at that time, going through JFK, going to the train station in Lille. I'm like, this sucks. I am never doing this again. This heavy freaking duffel bag was not actually a great move, right? So fatiguing travel and just learning lessons. And those are simple things. But if you think about when you reflect on what hasn't been working, if there's something that seems like not that big of a deal, but it massively actually affects your physical well-being, your energy, how long it takes you to recover after you do something like traveling or working or whatever, that's a big deal. If you completely cut that out of your life and instead say, okay, every time I have a carry-on, it has to roll. Something that I'm carrying has to be able to roll, that I'm carrying on has to be able to roll, or it's like, I just need a whole different bag, right? So silly things like that, but those are the small tweaks that, one, make life dramatically more enjoyable, and that, two, we have to look back and realize, oh, I made that decision. And look how much easier life is now, right? Like this apartment that I hemmed and hawed, should I bother? And had a bazillion advisors helping me figure out the strategy and the why and all the kinds of things. And yet it's made my life so much easier. And now it's a new normal. So you have to look back and realize that is when I reached a breaking point of I can't do this anymore. I made a new decision. I made something a new normal. And now it's so normal, I forget that I did it. And I almost forget to give myself credit. So this is all the beauty of looking back, okay? Now, if you guys want to, I think we'll do this. Let's do this really quickly. The question that I love to do after I've kind of looked at what did I love about last year? What did it gift me? What did I not like about last year? What do I want to leave behind in it? Is a simple start and stop list. Now, some of you may have already heard of this. It is one of the most powerful things I have found in the coaching world. And actually, some people like to make a third column. So you can look at it this way. Can you guys see that? Hope it's not backward. Start, stop, and keep, as in keep doing, okay? So this is where you take your awarenesses of what you did and didn't like about last year and you turn it into tangible actions, okay? So this is where the feminine who's reflecting on what was and wasn't life-giving in the past year is now being like, okay, cool. Therefore, masculine energy, here are the new boundaries. This is what we're about to start doing. This is what we ain't doing no more. And this is something that actually has been really in high service across the board. We're going to keep doing that one. Okay. So this actually, you can see, I don't know if you guys can read that. I'll go through them maybe later, but some of my January goals, can't quite see all of them, I guess. But one of the things, for example, that I want to start doing, it's perfect actually, having just talked about the travel fatigue sometimes, is Pilates, because I am 6 feet tall and I often have lower back pain. I'm in pretty good shape, friends. I love to run outside. If you know me, you know this. In the mornings, no matter where I am, if it's good weather, I go down, even if it's cold in Georgetown, or I run the beach in California, I run in Paris, all these things. It's great, but that means my legs are in great shape and my lungs are in great shape. My core is regularly ignored. And while I actually have pretty decent definition in my core, I know it's not as strong as it could be because I have the feeling that that's going to massively strengthen my back as well. And so all of this, grabbing a suitcase and running to the gate before the doors for the flight close, or all these things that I'm regularly doing, is going to be so much easier if my core strength is way better. So what does that mean? I'm going to start signing up. I have 2 Pilates classes that are literally next to my apartments. It's insanely convenient. And because this is so important, I have new workout outfits, okay? Now, if you need a motivator to do something new, my tip for you here is buy the outfit for it. I'm just saying, if you want to date more, get out there and buy some cute red and black dresses. Buy a pair of heels. If you want to work out more, I have fallen in love with Alo. Brilliant branding. Oh my gosh. Really powerful marketing strategy there. ALO, you guys can probably see it up there. I bought some new workout clothes. Ta-da. And now I'm so excited to go to my Pilates classes because I get to wear them, right? If you want to, step up in your business, I cannot advise more buying blazers and leather leggings, and you will feel like a business badass in no time. You're welcome, right? So buy the outfit for what you want. That could be on your start list. Start buying something for the activity that you want to be doing more, instead of just simply telling yourself, I want to do this, and then nothing really changes because around you, nothing has changed. You don't have any more of the supplies that you're going to need for it. You don't have something to literally dress and clothe yourself in that gives you the sense of a new identity and prepares you for the activity, right? So allow yourself to buy the outfit for the thing you want to start doing. Okay, so if you want, fill out a little list of what you want to start doing this year. Another thing I know I want to start doing is organizing, as you can see, if it's not backward, all of my photos and videos. In fact, in addition, the only other tabs I have open right now, because I hate a bazillion tabs being open, I don't know how people survive that, is this YouTube streaming one and a transfer tab from the photo shoot I did in December at the Paris Opera House with one of my favorite photographers. It's actually the videos. And I need to clean out my computer so I can download the videos, right? It's just I need total order for all of my content assets so that this year it's easier to create content quickly and from any different tech thing that I happen to have with me, right? There's certain systems that I have. I'll talk more about that at the end of this video in case it's of interest to you, but that's something that I want to start doing. I've done it before. I need to do it again and more deeply. organizing all, let's see, let's call it photo assets, photo video assets. Another one I want to do is I have so many testimonials from clients, like insane, raving, tears rolling down their cheeks, video testimonials, and I need to clip. Actually, what I need to do is hire someone to clip them all and put them into a testimonial reel. I've got them, and they're the reason that I have no space on my computer. They're all downloaded. It's amazing, and I need to put them together, right? Things I want to stop doing. Oh my gosh, that's the next list, guys. Okay, so what do you want to start doing? What do you want to stop doing? And what do you want to keep doing based on what you loved about last year and what you want to leave behind in last year? Things I want to stop doing: traveling to places I don't like. I'm sorry, but there it is, right? Like I was saying, and I won't go through it again, but I've spent like a whole journal page being like, I never have to do this again. I never have to drag my bags through this crappy, like I'm done with certain places that that brought me no joy. And when you have such an ability to create and design your life, and you find yourself regularly being in places that you don't enjoy, you just have to pause and wonder why. Why am I doing this? Okay. Other things I want to stop doing. I guess in the vein of what I was sharing about things I didn't love last year, I feel like I've done this quite well actually, but just to remind myself to not give to people who are takers. Gosh, if you guys haven't been on one of my trainings, you don't know how blunt I can get sometimes. I promise I'm still being very nice. I can be a lot more blunt than this. Not give to people who are takers. Now, notably, I'm saying, and I don't love giving people an identity because I deeply believe that people are wonderful and we're all children of God and we're just making decisions about our behaviors and we can change those decisions and behave better. But what I'm saying takers here for is because there's some people, most humans, right, take every now and then, including me, right? We have a need. We have to ask a favor. We have to ask somebody for help or advice or whatever. And so it's a small take. But there are some people, right, who are like, take, take. You know what I mean? And then they're like, thank you so much. And you're like, oh, well, you're welcome. I'm just happy to be of service. Take. And it's just like, after a while, the door has closed. The taking is now over. You're going to have to find a new source, right? And so not giving to people who are takers is something, or rather, I'm going to stop giving to people who are takers. Pause, identify, politely decline. So interesting because I've done that recently and I'm watching the last wave of attempts to tap into my energy and effort outside of the realms of what I'm willing to do. So it's like, nope, it's on the stop list. So sorry. All right, keep doing. Very important list also, right? Because this is the list that gives us credit. Like, yo, you really had some things figured out last year. Let's keep doing more of that. The things that you figured out from the year before that you didn't like, that you brought into last year and are working, let's continue those, right? So a big one for me is prioritizing my relationship. Now, at the beginning of last year, I was dating multiple people. You guys know all about that. I talk about it frequently on my podcast. And so I was prioritizing dating, right? I was prioritizing the relationships I was investigating or kind of considering, et cetera. Now that I only have one for the last more than half a year, I am prioritizing that, right? So if he messages, I'm not the kind of person who's going to jump up and run, but it becomes a priority in the midst of whatever else I need to do to make sure this man feels seen and heard and understood and loved and cared for. And he does the same for me. So I want to keep doing that. I don't ever want to become someone whose business or whatever, other aspects of life make someone who we verbally say is important to us feel unimportant and unseen. Okay, so my actions are going to match my claims there. What else do I want to keep doing? Taking great care of my body. One of my biggest wins, if you guys remember, depending on how long you followed me, in 2023, I think it was, I had so many hits to my immunity. I spent I think the last month or so of that year, maybe it was mostly November. So I think it was strep throat or something. I got something that was way worse than what I normally get. And I had gotten sick quite a bit that year, just little immunity things, colds, et cetera, nothing terrifying, but annoying, right? And when you're traveling regularly and you speak for a living, It's problematic if your throat is sore and you can't talk. So I changed my priorities big time at that time and shifted my non-negotiables around sleep, around food, around travel, and what times I was traveling, all that kind of stuff. And I have not, knock on wood, although I don't think that's really necessary, had struggles with my immunity since. I can feel a cold starting sometimes, and I can usually take it out in 24 to 48 hours. And that's because of these non-negotiables. And I will prioritize my immunity and my well-being above my work. My kids understand, if mommy's got to sleep, you know what I mean? Like, it's a top priority, because if I can't physically perform, no one's going to step in and do it for me, right? So all of the things that are done by me can only be done by me, and I need to physically be able to show up for them, which means well-being has to be top tier. So going to keep doing great body care, sleep, vitamins, staying warm. What else do I do? Like I was saying, I don't travel too early in the day anymore. All of those 6 or 7 or 8 a.m. flights, no thank you. I try not to fly until like 11 at the earliest, no matter where I am. I will show up to coaching calls with no makeup just because I needed to sleep more, or I needed to get my run in. And my client doesn't need fake lashes. They need my wisdom, right? So priorities. All right. So you've got your, what did you love about last year? What do you want to leave behind in last year? And based on that, what do you want to start? What do you want to stop? And what do you want to keep doing? Okay, cool. So that's our little review of the previous year. And I also gave you the ways of taking this deeper, because like I said, I go deep into my past year review. And I invite you to also thank the year. I know that sounds maybe a little bit woo-woo for some of you, and that's okay. But it's just that it's really, to me, it's a gratitude to God for what I lived, what I learned, what I experienced, what he led me through, who I became. If you have a word of the year or a theme of the year, I look back at how that year, I'm looking over here because that's where my ginormous full wall calendar lives, how that year turned me into that word or revealed that word to me. And my word for last year was Empress. And I look back at all of the things that I allowed, that I stepped into, that I stopped, that became never agains, non-negotiables, no way. And by the end, I was a very different woman than by the beginning. That's going to be the topic of my next podcast, so I won't go into it too deeply here. If you want to know more about that, you're welcome to. And my word for this year is empire. So last year made me the woman who cut off relationships and dynamics with people who were 100% benefiting from me. Let's put it that way, right? That's a polite way of saying it. Made me realize my expertise and the degree to which people need to hear from me, and to stop hiding that. And a lot of people say that to me very clearly and very bluntly and very lovingly all the way throughout the year. A whole new level of fearlessness in life, aware that God protects me and has numbered my days, and nobody else has any say over his providence over my life and my children's lives. What else? I allowed myself to be loved by a man. Not that I wasn't already doing that, but I definitely allowed it at a deeper level, even though it was kind of scary. And I'm so glad that I did. Stepped into this beautiful now back and forth bi-coastal living and working life that I love. Allowed myself to step into the identity of being a runway model again, even though I'm almost 40 years old. It was insane, right? Heck of a year, but it created the identity that now allows the outcome, which is the empire. You guys are going to see so much more about this, and I'll talk about the things I'm launching at the end of this video. So you'll get to know exactly what I mean in certain ways. Of course, it's a big word, means a lot of things in this year for me, in this world for me. But from a launch perspective, I'll share about that at the end. Now, let's move into the future, okay? So we reviewed, looked at, thanked the past year. This is the part where most of these formats, which again, I love and have learned so much from, switch into 2026. And we're not going to, right? Or switch into the next year, the current year that we're stepping into, whatever year you guys are watching this, maybe I'll leave this up and it'll serve for years to come. But this is where I always hit pause, or where I have now learned to hit pause on other people's processes, because this right now, what we're about to do wasn't there. And it drove me nuts because I think it's so important. And that is, bust out the big new journal for this question, friends? Or do I keep writing on a little paper? I don't know. This question determines your destiny. But nothing really determines your destiny. God controls so much. And yet, like I said, I believe in co-creation. I believe that he invites most often. Sometimes he just steps in and does the thing, which I'm very grateful for too, right? So many times we don't see things and he's just like, let me just handle that for you. Boom. But other times it's an invitation. Sometimes an invitation we're not even aware exists, right? That we're not even aware of, but it's there. So my invitation to you is to pause and ponder, forget 2026. Okay, so we're going to begin this by forgetting some things. We're going to forget what year it is. We're going to forget what your maybe even relationship status is. We're going to forget the state of your body, the state of your appearance, what job you have, how much money you make, where you're living. We're going to forget a lot of things that feel. Now we're going to reinsert them later, so don't panic. I'm not saying abandon your life, but for the moment, just, I like to say, give them a picnic basket and send them off on a little hike, and we'll reconvene with them at a later time. But this moment is for you. And the question that I want you to answer is, in the life of your dreams, what are you doing? Now notice, I'm speaking in present tense. What are you doing? I'm not saying if you were to create your life, what do you want to do? Because then we start to bring in the practicalities. We start to say, well, in about 5 years, I'm not asking where you want to be in 5 years. I'm not asking any of that yet. Okay. I'm asking simply, forget what feels like a logistical, practical, must be considered right now. And just, if you are living your dream life, what is your dream life? What are you doing? Where are you? Who are you with? How do you look? How do you feel? What are you wearing? What are you about to eat? Or what did you just eat? Or what are you eating right now? How much money are you regularly making? Where is it coming from? How are you spending your days? Where do you sleep at night? Right? Some people like to do this through what they call the dream day exercise. I think that's cool too, but I sometimes find again that people start to put in pieces that are already present in their life. And they also, naturally, makes sense, try to limit it into, okay, well, what happens during a normal day? So I say scrap that. And instead, I'm inviting you to imagine an instant, just like a quick, brief visual, boom, where are you? It's your dream life. Where are you? It's an afternoon, it's a morning, it's an evening, I don't care. In a moment, just give me a picture. You don't have to give me a picture. You can put it in the chat if you want, but comment down below. Or you can just write it in your journal because this is for you. Okay? Totally forgetting things. It's your dream life. Where are you? Now, if you're like me, you might have several. And then you're like, how can I be in Paris and on the beach in California at the same time? Right? Don't think about the practicalities. If you need to have a multi-location dream life, cool, do that. Sometimes when I do these kind of visualizations, I'll imagine myself in one place, but the person I'm imagining, the version of myself there, is cognizant at the time that she has a location here, or she also lives part-time there, or this is happening over there, right? So the dream life in and of itself is not limited to the one location that you're visualizing when I say that. But the most important thing is that you don't put limits on this. You don't tell yourself, well, I'm too old for this. I'm too young for this. I'll never meet this. I'll never accomplish that. I've got to figure out what to do with them. I don't have the money, all of this kind of stuff. Screw it. We can't create if we're already putting limits, right? I talked earlier about constraints. We'll bring in the constraints later, but first we need to have even just the inspiration. Now, one of the things I love to do for this is Pinterest. Ladies, unite, although there's gentlemen on Pinterest too. It's like the visual idea board, right? It's a vision board that is online that you can organize. I love that. I can organize it by theme. So if that helps you, fantastic. My Pinterest now knows me so well that every time I open it, it's like the perfect little 4 or 5 conglomerates of like a Bible verse and something about Paris and a beautiful dress. It knows me. It gets it. It understands the assignment. Yours may not yet be trained. Instagram, I find, is not like that because I can't control what other people are posting. Pinterest is essentially trained to be exactly what you want. Now, you could say Instagram too, but still. Anyway, I think it's different. It's more social. Pinterest is purely visual ideas. So if that helps you, if you want to whip that out real quick, but my encouragement to you would be to go to something like Pinterest or to a physical vision board. In fact, I'll show you guys this. I was mentioning in my last podcast, I bought my wall calendar for this year, which I will show you. And this one, it's not particularly impressive, but it's still something. Came with an extra vision board. Ta-da! It's literally just a piece of paper, super flimsy, but that's okay. I appreciate the concept. So if you want to use a physical vision board or Pinterest, whatever, do it. But I would encourage you to do that next, okay? Or to do it later. And instead to start now with just visioning. So we can do it real briefly if you want. I'll give you just a taste of it and then I'll let you guys run with it, okay? So we can keep moving. But if you just close your eyes and release every sense of obligation, limitation, anyone else's opinion, your own perception of your capacity, anything that feels like, oh, but I couldn't do that because, just let it drop for a minute. We'll look at it later. It's your dream life. You're living it right now. Where are you? Who's there with you? Who's maybe coming or has just left? What are you wearing? What does your body feel like? What does your body look like? What did you just finish doing? What are you about to be doing with your time? What are you so excited about because it's right around the corner and you've already started planning? And what are you no longer worried about anymore? What people do you no longer have to deal with? What obligations haven't been on your calendar in years? Cool, huh? And if you want to, you can even ask yourself at the end of that, what was the one guiding word that gave you permission to create that gave you permission to experience that, right? When I declared Empress at the end of 2024, it's so funny because I was actually at a mastermind and I was going to a restroom while waiting for a shuttle bus out of Utah to go back to, I think I was flying out of Vegas. And the name of the toilet paper was Empress, friends. It was the brand. It was stamped on the paper. I'm not kidding, right? You start to be like, oh my gosh, there's confirmation everywhere, right? But when I gave myself permission to claim that identity, shit started changing real fast. And sometimes one of the first things that changes is tests come in. You sure you want that? You sure you can handle that? Yeah, 100%. Year by year by year, as I look back and learn from everything I've lived, 100%, bring it on. Right? With gratitude for God for protection. That was one of my biggest lessons this year too. Thank you, January 2025. God's over everything. Not worried about a thing. Cool? Okay. Now, I invite you, whenever you're watching this, maybe later if you need to, because I don't want to give us a too long pause. I want to keep you moving through the process. But your next step right now would be to write out the vision that you just saw in your mind, the dream day, the dream life you were living. And again, I prefer life than day, because day you'll try to kind of put all the organizational structures into it. Just that moment that I asked those questions for. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you wearing? How does your body feel? How does your body look? What did you just finish doing? What are you about to do that you're so excited? You're already planning for it. Who's totally out of your life? What obligations are totally out of your life? What are you eating? What kind of music are you listening to? Whatever you want it to be, right? All that kind of stuff. Write it down. Write it down. Now, generally, when I do things like that, the image in my mind is so clear that I don't forget it for a couple hours at least, but I still recommend that you pause and write down. Even sometimes I'll just take quick bullet point notes, and then I can flesh it out into something that's more in depth and prose like later. But I just want to get down, what did my spirit want? What was my heart like? This, yes, let's do that. Okay. Now, the reason it's important to write that down, and if you want to, I love putting images on it, using Pinterest, using a physical vision board if you want. We're going to keep that in front of us very consistently. And one of the places I love to put what I want next actually is on my phone lock screen. I have so many different phone backgrounds and I swipe between them based on my mood at that moment. And if there's something that it's not so much a goal. I don't put goals on there. I put things I want to experience. It's much more of a feminine energy. I don't ever want a sense of pressure or a sense of gap when I'm picking up my phone, right? Which is how I live so much of my life. I want a sense of, yes, that's right. That's what I want. That's what's coming next. And a lot of times I'll put up things that I have created, right? I'll put a beautiful moment with my kids, or I'll put the beach in California, or I'll put something in Paris, or I'll put my boyfriend or whatever. And it's like, that's right. So delicious. That's life now, right? And sometimes it'll be what I want to experience next, or the emotion that I want to embody. When I went to Paris and the snow was gone, that's okay. My lock screen was still a picture of Paris in the snow, because that was the energy, the experience that I came to embody, regardless of what it looked like. Still felt like it to me. For those of you who follow my Instagram stories, you know that I did find snow. And I 100%, actually, I don't think I've shared this yet, but we were at brunch and my boyfriend's like, look, and there was actually 2 piles of snow, okay, that had been pushed up against trees and had still not yet melted. And I went over there, made a snowball out of one, thanked him profusely, then threw it at him. Went back later, I asked for a cup at the little mulled wine crepe stand that was next to us, and took a plastic cup, put some snow in it, and walked around with it. 100%. Walked through one of the department stores there. It completely melted. So I took it back, refilled my cup even more, and then took my little cup of snow and put it in the freezer at the apartment we were staying in, and promptly forgot it. However, I lived that experience, right? I held on to and played with and threw a snowball and absolutely loved Paris in the snow. Even if it wasn't exactly what I was thinking it would be, it was everything I needed and I loved it, right? So I want you to have visuals and words of this dream life, this dream moment, because now we're about to switch into planning what's next. And the natural tendency, I don't know if it's natural, but it's certainly trained, the cultural tendency when we go to planning is like, okay, dream's over, let's get practical. What do I need to know? Okay, well, this is a work deadline, and this is a travel trip I can't get out of, and this is somebody's birthday, and this is, blah, 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 blah. And this is, these are my expenses this month, and this is my income, whatever it is. We start to plan practically. And a lot of times, let's do it like this. If this is our dream, I hope this is about to work, this visual metaphor. Let's try it. If this is our dream life, and we're like, oh, yes, somewhere between writing books in Paris cafes and then flying home to a mansion in California overlooking the ocean, or whatever, right? I'm making it up. Well, not really. As an example, okay? And then it's like, okay, 2026, I got to be here on this date. I need to be there on that date. I got to do this. So I'm going to put this in action and on my calendar, and I'm going to get going. And meanwhile, this is actually taking us in a totally different direction than where the dream life actually sits. What we want to do now is plan this year with, yes, the constraints in mind. We're not shirking responsibility. Is that how you pronounce that? Shirking? Avoiding. We're not running away from responsibility. We're highly aware of responsibility, but we're also not forfeiting our ability to create in the image of God, right? We're not forfeiting our ability to co-create our greatest dreams in the midst of our constraints. And I think that's one of the most inspiring, educational, encouraging things that you can do, especially even before your children and for them to watch, right? There's so many parents, and I think women often especially, who get sucked down into the sense of obligation and start to hate their life. And that's often what the children witness, is a woman who is miserable in her daily life. Hi guys, thanks for the like. So we're going to design 2026, or whatever next year, whenever you're watching this, we're going to design our current year. And we're going to witness the constraints, be aware of the constraints, put the constraints in the calendar, and still exercise our creativity to make sure, I hope this visual metaphor works for you guys. It works great for me. I'm not going to lie, that whatever it is that we're like, this is the to-do list, This has to happen. I gotta do this. I gotta be there. I gotta blah, 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 blah. These are the responsibilities, the deadlines, the obligations, the commitments, etc. We're gonna like manipulate is not the right word. Very seriously, firmly direct our plan amidst this to-do list to make sure that it does not take us on the default path of like, well, here's all our obligations and well, there goes my dream life. Maybe it'll happen in 2 decades, but probably not, right? To make sure we're like going to strongly, fiercely direct this airplane to go toward the dream life. I need like a toy plane. That's probably what I should have brought. One of my little Air France planes about my kids. So that it heads us in the direction of our actual dream life while still getting everything done that we need to get done, right? I'm here in DC. I get to have my kids in a couple hours. I'm throwing my daughter a birthday party this weekend. So excited. Meanwhile, I was just in France with my boyfriend. His parents were coming to town tomorrow, and they were like, we're so sorry. We're so sad we won't see you. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I can't change. I can't adjust this, which they completely understood. They're the nicest humans, right? So it's like, we're still doing what we need to do. But did I go to France and prioritize that relationship? Absolutely. In fact, we were on this beautiful dinner cruise, and this American couple was chatting with us. And the guy looked at me, older gentleman, was like, you live in LA and you're here? And I was like, yeah, must be love, right? Because like the weather, hello, it was perfection in Newport that particular weekend. It was cold in Paris. But like I just said, one of my things on my keep list is to prioritize that relationship. So I took my butt to France. I was also looking for snow. I found snow and I had a wonderful romantic week. So let's now look at what you know. Now, I want you to be really, in fact, let's not do that because that's not what I actually do. I was thinking, do I actually do that? I don't actually do that. I do it in this order, which is also something unique about how I operate. I kind of combine these things. Okay. So some people at this step, knowing that they now need to look at the constraints and still working to design their dream life trajectory into those constraints or in the midst of those constraints, start with the constraints. I actually start with the dream. Okay. So what is it? This is the best part. I'm not going to lie. It's all so fun, but this is my favorite part. Favorite part ever. What is it that you want to experience this year? OMG, my friends. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. This is when we decorate our time, right? To me, time is just a medium. It's like a room. It's like space. It's like clothing. It's like, I don't know, an image. It's something that you can work with. It's something that is 100% at your disposal as a creator made in the image of God, right? Your co-creative capacity also includes your ability to decorate your time. I've thought of, is there any other verb that articulates what I mean when I say this? Is it to manage your time? Definitely not. Is it to control your time? Hell no, right? Is it to enjoy your time? Yes, but it's more proactive than that. We are decorating the canvas of our life. And the canvas of your life, in case you weren't aware, is time, right? We can think through location, we can think through activity, we can think through people, but all of it happens during time. Time is the one thing that we can't get back, right? You can change your location, you can swap out, a friendship, you can change your outfit, you can change your job, but my God, like try to get yourself off of the time-space continuum. Good luck with that. Let me know how it goes. Okay, so we're decorating time. And this is where my obsession with calendars and planners gets to come in. So if you have a calendar already, this is one of, I think, 4 or 5, maybe 6 that I've already purchased. I have wall calendars like this, your classic. Look at that. Beautiful. Is that November? Yes. I'm always looking at the picture for November because that's my birthday month. And November often gets the short end of the stick in images. It's always like the dead trees with a cloudy sky pathway. And you're just like, thanks, not cool. So we have, is this Mont Saint-Michel? Yeah, it is. Mont Saint-Michel. All of the different France images. There we are. Now, as I was saying on my last podcast, I had this brilliant idea that I was going to take each one of these, look at this, and put it on the wall, right? So there'd be January with a picture and then a calendar day. And then there'd be, oops, beautiful, Notre Dame, February with a picture on a calendar day. But if you, unlike me at that time, have common sense, then you know that if I were to put the calendar page up on the wall, that would be the picture page on the wall, or not on the wall, I guess backward on the wall for the next one. And so the only thing I could do would be only to use the calendar pages, which completely defeats the purpose of having beautiful images of France. So that didn't work, okay? However, I now have 2 France wall calendars like that. And I'm not complaining. They were a great deal. So what I did instead is I bought what I always buy, went back to what has been working, and I got one of these ginormous, it's so big it takes up the whole screen, ginormous desk calendars. Now I think these are designed to lay on your desk and you can write things, blah, 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 blah. What I do, and I will give you a quick flash at my current wall because I haven't taken down the 2025 calendars yet, is I pull off very gently, I don't want to rip them, each of these, and I picked this one because it's flowers, and this is going to be a year of blooming, okay? 2026 is the year of my super bloom. Amen. Thank you, Lord. Okay, and so it's flowers, but they're not repeating patterns because that drives me nuts, okay? Don't be cheap on me, calendar people. Each month has a different floral border, has a space for notes on the side because you know I'm going to write my month's theme words and all that kind of stuff, and my priorities and goals those months, the things I want to experience, etc. Okay, all right, you get the point. So I'm going to rip off each of these very carefully, and then now you have to measure your wall before you buy one of these because they're different dimensions and you may not have enough wall space. So I actually, in fact, I'll show you my one real quick. Hang on. I bought a different one for California because I have a smaller wall over there. Isn't this pretty? Also flowers, sticking with the super bloom theme. Gold foil on the months. I don't know if you can see that. So pretty. Different flowers for each month. Smaller size because in California, I don't have as big of a wall. The place where I put my wall calendar is not as large. So this is what I turn it into, okay? So I rip off each one, tape it very delicately to the wall. I'm going to show you this real quick if I can unplug my laptop and not cause a tech catastrophe here. Let's see if I can do this neatly. You guys see that? Oh my goodness, all the way up. And then I had to move November because I couldn't get to it around my file cabinet. There you are, okay? And I will tell you what's on my whiteboard at the end. Promise. Plug myself back in here. So I rip off each one. That sounds so terrible. I rip off each page, okay? I gently tear off each page, tape it to the wall so that I can see all of them at one time. And that I do. I've never been able to not do it ever since I started because it is visually so powerful. I know people have these big, year on one page things, like a giant version of this. This came with one of my calendars. What am I going to do with that? I can't write on it. There's no space, right? I want to design and decorate my year. And I don't know if you guys are like this, but I 100% am. I don't know what I'm doing in June, and I can't think about June unless I can visually see April or something like that, right? I want to see the full canvas that I'm working with. And then inspiration and clarity start to come. Okay. So I want the entire year, not just visible in one go, but like paintable, right? So I don't want a small little box that I can't fit anything on. You can see how much space, you can imagine how much space is on every single one of these being next to each other. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is color code my location. Okay. So, well, that's not necessarily the next step, but sometimes it is. So I'm going to start figuring out, based on this beautiful year in front of me, what do I want to experience? And after I know what I want to experience, where does that experience take place? So for example, this past year, one of my biggest experiences that I desired was to see the lavender fields in Provence, which I had seen the year before, but I saw them the year before during a photo shoot, which was fast paced, got up at like 4 a.m., drove out there to be there by sunrise. It was like an hour and a half or 2 hours from where I was staying. Had my photographer come down from Paris, this whole thing. And it was unbelievable, but I was on, right? I enjoyed every single second of it. Let me be clear, but it was not a moment where I could sit in the lavender fields and take a nap and journal. I was full hair and makeup. Let's hit the next location. I'm paying the driver by the hour. Let's go, And so I knew I wanted to return to Provence to really rest in the lavender And I don't know when and what podcast I talked about that. I think I did a podcast on June in review or early summer in review. And I talked about booking this crazy little super tourist filled, but so fun, van tour guide, day tour to the lavender fields of Provence out of Marseille. But first I knew, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, I have to be in France at that time. I have to get myself to France, right? So the experience that I want to have, one of the experiences I want to have, and I'll help you in a moment to write out a kind of a what's coming to mind, top 5, 10, 15 of things you want to experience. I love this. Tara Moreno taught me this part, but I tweaked it a little bit, not going to lie. And so I knew I wanted to see the lavender. That's not going to happen in Washington, D.C. So at that time of year, within the constraints of, right, like I know when I'm going to be with my children in California, that's prime lavender time. Oh, well, fortunately, I can get there a little early. It might not be peak bloom, but I'll still have the experience and it'll be beautiful, right? Okay, so that being known, I have to be back in the US by this day. I can leave on this day. Therefore, this is the time frame. I've got a client who wants me to help her lead an event right outside of Paris. That was beautiful. Then I've got this, there it is, this side still, Maria Edgeworth conference that I want to go to. That's in Paris. And then I have 5 days or whatever it was. It wasn't that long where I can go down and stay in Provence and get my derriere out to a lavender field. No makeup, simple outfit, journal and snacks, and just be and listen to the bumblebees and smell it and look up at the sky and just notice that it feels like I've left the planet, in the best way. I've just entered heaven for a little pause. Magical, right? That was one of my desired experiences for last year. And so you can see, I'll say it again a little more slowly. The experience came first. I want to see the lavender, then the constraints. A lot of people will reverse these. Of course you have constraints. Of course you can't change the constraints, but you won't even think about the desire if you're focusing on the constraints first. So desire first, acknowledge it, and then look at the logistics of it, and then look at the logistics of constraints. Okay, so for lavender, I got to be in Provence. I mean, I could have been in California, but it's not the same. No offense to California, right? Lavender fields of Provence. This is the blooming window. Okay, well, here's the actual constraints of my life. I got to be back in the US by this date. But the beginning of the blooming window, I can still be there. Okay, now where am I going to stay? Fortunately, I have friends there now. I go stay at their apartment. But I've got a client who wants me to work in Paris earlier. I've got another conference I want to go to. So this is the time. Okay, well, let me reach out to my friends, see if their apartment's available. Yes, it is. Awesome. Now, how am I going to go see the lavender? Do I want to rent a car and drive off where there's no cell service by myself in France? Not that much. I'd prefer to be with somebody if I'm going to do that. Plus, renting a car, frankly, was more expensive than booking this ridiculously cheap day tour to see the lavender fields in Provence, right? So all of these different, you start with the desire, you look at the constraints of your life, compare them to the constraints of the desire, and then you make the desire practical. Now, had I planned out how I was going to get to see the actual physical lavender field in Provence, had I picked out, that day tour that went from Marseille in January? No, absolutely not. In fact, I picked it out like 2 days before, once I finally got to Provence. But I knew this was a desire, so I got myself, this is so important. I don't think I've ever phrased it this way. I got myself in position to experience the desire. Okay. Now let's flip and look at another desire real quick. I wanted to be in a relationship. I had an absolute blast dating many wonderful men. And there's this sense of fatigue, right? That comes from starting at zero every time, right? Or feeling, and maybe not even feeling, being highly aware that you're putting in a certain amount of effort. And while the person is nice and they're interested, the effort is just not being matched, and you're tired and you're feeling a little bit hurt, maybe a little bit resentful. And then you realize this is not what I'm here for, right? This is just not what I'm willing to experience, right? So I wanted to be in a beautiful, healthy, gorgeous relationship, preferably with a tall, dark-haired Frenchman who's very kind and intelligent, right? That was the goal. And I needed to be in position for that desire. Right? So knowing that was a huge theme and goal for me last year, I made sure that amidst all of the other constraints of my life, right, in that context, needing to be involved enough in my business that my cash flow was good so I could pay for all my various expenses. Nevertheless, this was a goal. Was it a goal that was going to pay me? No, not outside of maybe some dinners here and there, right? It was a goal that was going to take time and yet not be directly business building. And yet it was a very important priority to me. And I was going to be sure, therefore, to put myself in position to be available to experience that desire. And that meant being on, the app that I was on at the time, being messaging regularly, doing all these things that normally I would not bother to do because they don't fit into what, my normally daily routine looks like. But I wanted the desire. So I had to make sure it fit into the way I was decorating my time so that I would be positioned for the desire. Make sense? Okay. Now, I'm going to pause and blow my nose, friends. Give me a second and we're going to continue. Okay. Now, so your next step is to write out 5 to 10 to 15, whatever, I wouldn't go over 15. Sometimes people say don't go over 5 or 10. I usually go over 15. I'm not going to lie, because I can fit in a lot of beautiful things if I really strategize. But once you're starting to push 20, it's a lot. And yet you do you. If you want to do 20, 25, what I don't want is for you to have a list that feels so overwhelming and large that it feels impossible to attain. I want you to have the sense of this is definitely something that I can fit into my life, into my world. Okay. So 15-ish, give or take a few things that you want to experience. I invite you to not make these goals. I know, it makes no sense. Now, here's the caveat, and I'll explain it in a second. When I say things you want to experience, some of them will be physical, like a trip, for example, like going to Provence for the lavender fields, or like when I realized that I had the opportunity to walk in Paris Fashion Week. I didn't even know that at the beginning of the year. I was aware that I wanted to model more formally in France and hopefully runway, right? Because I'd done print and it was great, but I love runway and I wanted to step more into that world. It was kind of a dream that I threw out there. I don't think I'd have to go find my list from last year. I don't know that I may have put it on my experience list. I don't know. But, that came in and it became something that was time and location dependent, right? Like Provence lavender, like Paris Fashion Week in October. There may be other desires you have that aren't as time or location bound. For example, the relationship example I just gave, right? I wanted to be in a relationship. I knew I wanted it to be with a Frenchman, preferably. But what does that mean? Where does one go to be in a relationship with a Frenchman? Well, you go to France a lot, which is one of the reasons I have been. But there may be things like maybe getting in shape, right? So me wanting to step more into Pilates to strengthen my core so I don't have, back pain sitting on these airplanes, hauling around suitcases all the time. That's something that's going to be ongoing. When and where does one do that? So you have things that are clearly time and location bound. You'll have things that are not really, which can feel, harder to plan in. And you'll have things that are ongoing, right? The things like maybe an exercise class that you want to start at a certain time that are in a certain location or are easiest for you to get to in a certain location. And yet you want them to keep going. Okay. So I say all of that because I don't want you to limit yourself. I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, experiences. Well, what does that mean? It has to be a certain place at a certain time and a certain sensory thing that I live. Not necessarily. It can be, I won't say, I don't love the word goals. I don't know why. It just feels so pressure and not fun. I like desires, right? And if it's truly a goal, or if it's truly a desire, then it would be a goal. And if it's truly a goal, then it's probably something that I desire, or hopefully. And in fact, one of the most powerful ways to make sure that your goals are things you actually want and not something that you think you should accomplish or that someone else has accomplished and you want to match them, or that people have told you that, you ought to have as a goal, is it a desire? If you want to lose weight, and upon further analysis, you recognize that you want to lose weight because your mother or something comments on your weight. And when you really check with yourself, you don't desire to lose weight. You feel great in your body. It's performing well. It's healthy. You're happy. Then it was a goal that we accidentally picked up from our surroundings, but it's not a true desire, right? So 15-ish desires for this year, whether it's to be in a relationship, to experience Pilates classes, to experience lavender fields in Provence, to experience parrots at Christmas with your family, whatever, right? Write those out and don't limit yourself. We'll figure out the practicalities next. Okay. But these are the big dreams in your heart. Now, one more thought, and then I'll give you guys 2 moments to write this quietly. When I was talking earlier about your dream life, in this moment, allow yourself to think from the frame of, if I could experience this year, it would make it the most amazing year ever, right? So I am not going to, for example, put on this list of experiences, I want to have another 5-year-old. I would love to have another child, love to have 2 actually. But I know that even if I were to suddenly get married and get pregnant, all these things, they're not going to be 5 years old this year. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I could adopt, or I could whatever, right? But do you see what I'm saying? So in the trajectory of the dream life that you visioned, but something that is feasible within the span of the next 12 months. Okay. Knowing kind of where you want to head, but now we're bringing it into a more finite time zone. Time limit. I'm so used to time zones. You get what I'm saying. So we want it to be kind of in and of the nature of the dream life you imagine, but now something that would and could occur in the next 12 months. It might feel impossible. It might feel hard, but it shouldn't feel literally not physically a thing, right? Again, like I said, I could adopt or babysit a 5-year-old, but I could not birth a 5-year-old this year. You get the point. All right. So 15-ish things you want to experience this year. Go. You should flow easily. It might take a moment to kind of let yourself dream, but whatever's coming through, just write it down. Even if they're in different directions, trust it. Okay. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. I may add some more later. Hi, everybody. Say hi in the chat. Let me know who's here. Okay. Now I'll read off some of mine. I'm not going to read all of them. I always keep some of my desires private because, well, I don't necessarily pick a camp on if you share your desires, are they more or less likely to come true? I don't really care. I won't say I don't care, but I don't think that necessarily dictates whether or not they occur. I know there's science behind it, et cetera, et cetera. I just like to keep some things close to my heart. You can say close to my chest. Sometimes I do it for privacy, and sometimes I do it because I'm still pondering and processing and savoring that like in my own heart. And I don't feel the need to let everybody in on it until it happens or until we're a little closer. One thing I will share with you guys that occurred to me, how many of you guys have seen, I think it's mostly on Instagram, this, 2026 is the new 2016 thing. My first reaction was, there's no way in hell I want to go back to 2016, right? I don't want to go back to the past at all. And yet, as I pondered it, it was like, well, a couple really beautiful things happened that year. Namely, my daughter was born. That's why she's turning 10 now. It has been a decade since her birth, which is incredible. So a decade of being a mother. I feel like an OG now, even though I don't know that I qualify, but it feels like it. And my book, right? So this is where the first thing that came to mind, the first thing that came to mind after realizing I'd been a mother for 10 years and thinking, what else happened in 2016, excuse me, I wrote the Bombshell Manifesto and launched it. My first book. It hit the bestseller list, I think, for its first time, and then it did again later. And people loved it, and I loved writing it. And I've been wanting to do an updated version because I feel like I've learned so much more about life since then. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool? Hi, Christina. If I did a 10-year anniversary version. That'd be so cool. What if I did a 10-year updated edition, 10-year anniversary updated edition, and this time I had it hardcover printed with like this. If you guys have seen that book, in fact, I have it somewhere. No, it's over there on my, it's over there on my computer bag, and I don't think I'll get it. I already got my other thing. Let's do it. This is my draft version because I'm going to take it on my next France trip, actually, along the line of desires, because I want to write in Paris cafes. And I'm going to take this, and it's got the little blue tape even. It's one of my old copies, and I'm going to mark through it, figure out what I want to update. But then I'm going to have it printed, ideally, in something that is with the true crocodile texture. So you can see that the little like faux crocodile. I don't know if you can even see it through there, but anyway, there's a fake white crocodile texture, and that's what I want to actually have printed. Maybe we do gold edges too. I don't know. We're gonna have some fun. So that is one of my big desires this year. As soon as I realized, oh my gosh, it's 10 years since the book. I've had rewriting the book on my list for years. This is the year that, especially, thank God, because I'm realizing this in January, so I have a whole year to get it done, that by Christmas time, I would love to have a 10-year anniversary version out. Oh, it would be so baller. So there's that. A lot of these desired experiences fit into one of my themes for this year, which is very much family. I'm going to leave that there and not go into much more detail. But what was interesting about this year's desires for me, and I was kind of already aware because even before I sit down and do this, they tend to percolate and drop in, is that a lot of the desires I've had for the last few years and experienced beautifully, I've noticed were not a priority for me, right? So lavender fields were a big priority for me for the last 2 years. I know that might sound silly, but it just was, okay? The first year for photos, the second year for presents, and this year, I don't feel the need to go see the lavender in Provence. I know, it's like I scratched the itch. I did, however, notice that I would love to go spend time in the southern regions of France at some point in between, late spring and early autumn. Okay. So there may be not just experiences that come through for you, but old experiences or previous experiences, or maybe things that you didn't even ever experience, but they've dropped off the list, and that's okay, right? One of the things on my list for the last few years has always been pumpkin patches with my children. I know that sounds silly, but maybe it doesn't sound silly to you. I don't think it's silly. I love pumpkin patches. I love those days where we get together with my family and we drive out into the country and there's, apple cider or hot chocolate or whatever. And we take a hayride. I mean, I just love it. It's so life-giving. It feels like living life when you're out there and you're disconnected a little bit and children are running around happy, and it's gorgeous. So that's been on my list. It doesn't feel like as big of a priority this year. I imagine, now this is something interesting that might happen to you guys too, that as I approach, it will probably come back on the priority list. But sometimes at the beginning of the year, my almost themes for the year priorities guide the way I want to shape the year. And then as other things come up, I'll fit them in, right? So in the past, pumpkin patch days have been a big deal. And this year it feels more like something that I will integrate as I approach autumn, but it's not one of my big theme experiences for the year. My theme experiences for the year are very much around family, but more specific and in a new direction. Enough said. Okay, so I did put on here, I want to do more modeling days, which to some extent I've already stepped into the logistics of that. I'm going to go back for Fashion Week in March in Paris and walk again, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, there's other things on here too, friends, but I'm going to keep them to myself. So you have your 15-ish beautiful experiences, and then you're going to figure out where they make sense in the year. And like I said, sometimes it's obvious and sometimes they're not. But what I would invite you to do is instead of, like I said, instead of starting with the constraints of the year that you can't change, start with these actually. And that's where I've kind of tweaked other processes that I've learned from and loved is I really begin with these and then I figure out, okay, but what constraints do I have to work around? However, these are almost like 1 degree down, almost as non-negotiable as the constraints that I actually can't change or move and want to be faithful to, right? That, I swear to you, is how these things actually happen. If, for example, I said, well, I'll go walk in Paris Fashion Week if I can. If other things aren't, competing on my calendar, if I don't have other obligations, I could run over at the last minute and do it. No. Instead, months in advance, I've planned for that. I've accepted the, whatever, having been picked and then saying, yes, okay, I want the spot and reserving it, like all the kinds of things. It's done. And then if I have to bend other constraints around it, they're equally as important. In fact, a tiny bit more important for sure. But I will still make sure that both come to pass, even if that requires negotiation and creative strategy. That's what allows it to happen. How many of you know people in your life, and maybe you've been one of them, and no judgment because I have been one of them too, who have a dream or a goal, and yet life keeps getting in the way? I feel a siren is going by. It's confirmation. It's very common, right? Because that happens. Now, heaven forbid, God be with whoever's involved in that. Amen. But my point is, things are going to come up. And if the dream isn't non-negotiable, the dream's going to die at the hands of things that feel more urgent, even if, because sometimes they are important and we have to work with them and we want to work with them because there are priorities too. But there are many things that are urgent that are often brought up by those people I was mentioning earlier, right? The taker types of people. Oh, they want your time, they want your time, they want your time. And your dream life will die at the hands of people who want to take from you, not because they actually need you, but because that is how they have come to be, whether it's their natural tendency or how they've learned to get through life is by taking from you. Time, effort, energy, attention, whatever. So by holding your dreams as non-negotiable, it is the only way I have found to let them come to pass. Now, does that mean that every single dream is going to happen every year? No. Like I've said, have had my book on my list for years, wanting to redo the Bombshell Manifesto. Hasn't, one could argue, is it like because I've been lazy? No, I don't think so. Is it because it hasn't been the right time? Yeah, I think so. And now feels like the perfect time. I've had, let's be real honest here, friends. I've had proposal on my list for a couple years. And things I don't think I've shared anywhere, maybe I have had proposals. But they haven't felt right. So I've turned them down, right? So I am not saying that by holding the dreams as non-negotiable, they are absolutely going to come to pass this year. I'm saying we're shaping our time as the boss. I need my boss hat, but I think it's in California, right? We're taking ownership and existing in mastery of the beautiful blank canvas of time. The time of our lives. We're having the time of our lives. We get to decorate the time of our lives. And we're doing that from a position of not, oh my gosh, I sure hope that the things I want to have happen get to come true this year. It would be so nice. No, like these are the things that I'm walking into this year, focusing my time, effort, enjoyment, energy toward, while also still being there for all the commitments and obligations that I do value and prioritize, noting that that is a much shorter list than the obligations and commitments that people will try to make you feel obligated to keep on your list and in your calendar. Get rid of those, retain the few that are actually important to you, and then hold the dreams in your heart as every bit as important. Might not be as absolute time specific, but as high priorities to you. And that's how it starts to come into life. Okay. I want to be like, do you have any questions? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to make sure I share on that part before we move to the next part. Hi, Christina. Our surroundings affect us. Holding our dreams is non-negotiable. Yes. Love to decorate the time of our life, retain what is needed, and put high priorities. 100%. Yes. And not letting other people put their priorities in. right? Really being in that was the word for me for last year, being the empress on the throne of her own life. And what that means in many different ways, lots of different things that it means, but one of them is to really hold a firm filter, like hold the scepter firmly of what shall pass and what shall not pass, right? People coming at you often with some slightly manipulative languaging sometimes, not even just languaging, but like maneuvers, right? Trying to get you, man, something happened toward the between quarter 3 and 4 of last year, which I won't go into detail, but essentially, can I go into any kind of detail? No, I don't think so. Something was indirectly tried to be taken from me. And I saw it, but I didn't act like I saw it. How many of you know how to play dumb when you need to, man? Right now, sometimes I actually am, I just don't see things, right? Sometimes I just don't get it. But this one I saw. And I didn't allow it to happen while elegantly just removing myself from the whole thing, right? So sometimes people will inject what they think and maybe even present as something that is in your best interest. And if you have your emperor's crown on and it has been straightened and you're comfortable in your chair and you've got your tea on one side and your scepter in the other, and you're like, that is the most delightful, fascinating suggestion. Thank you so much. I'll take it into consideration. Have a beautiful day, right? And you're inside like, hell no, hell to the no, right? Like there's no way. There's no way. And so that mentality, that filter from the position of empress over your life, co-creator with God, understanding your authority and your power through him. This is all my perspective. You're more than welcome to tweak it to fit your own, but that's how you protect your time from other people trying to take it from you, or maybe they're taking more than just your time or trying to, and you instead kept it safe. And now, because of that, you have the resources to put toward the life of your dreams. Okay, I see a question. I'm happy to answer it. And then I want to share with you a couple more practicalities about how to do this. Okay, what if a loved one or family have a higher priority? 100% can be tough to prioritize oneself at that moment. I love that, Christina. So I'll ask you another question. You can reply if you want. When you say they have a higher priority, and this can be tricky to sometimes parse is a word I like to use, which means very finely separate the different pieces, to see them clearly. Is it truly a higher priority? Like, hi, Davina. Is it, for example, a health crisis? Or is it something that they would like you to feel a higher priority for or around, and it's not really? I have seen and spent plenty of my life around people who, I don't know if I would call it masterful, but certainly proficient and prolific at making things feel like urgent priorities when they're not only not priorities, not urgent, they sometimes don't even exist, or they don't even need to exist. It is purely just kind of stress mongering, unnecessary panic, and whatever their purpose behind it, I don't know all the time. Sometimes I know, but sometimes it's like, that doesn't even need to occur, let alone be moved to the top of the priority list. So the first question would be, is it truly a priority? And what I really mean when I say that is it objectively a priority, right? For example, when I was in college, halfway through college, my mother became very ill. My mom has had various health issues throughout my life, and certainly grew up with her having to handle a lot of them, which she's done masterfully, beautifully, magnificently well by the grace of God. And yet in college, she had a vitamin B12 deficiency that we didn't know. That's what it was. It was misdiagnosed a couple times, and yet she was declining rapidly. I'm talking like losing the ability to walk, couldn't feel her fingers, couldn't feel her tongue, couldn't bathe herself, feed herself, all this kind of stuff, right? I'm in the middle of a summer from college. I'm working at the French embassy. I'm taking tennis lessons. I've just got a modeling agency. I'm having a great time. Suddenly, life has to stop completely because my mom apparently has 6 months to live. Right? That's priority, right? Everything stops. Quit everything, go home, become like full-time nurse, basically. And by God's grace and providence, in my opinion, she not only pulled through, but if you saw her now, she's a force. She's a force to be reckoned with in all of the best ways, and has recovered. She walks with a cane, but nevertheless, like she can She can drive better than most people on the streets, let alone, drive a car again. So that is an example of a priority. That's an actual priority. Objectively, people be like, okay, yeah, 100%. We gotta clear the slates. We gotta clear the calendar. Like, yes, modeling was your dream. Yes, tennis lessons was your dream. Yes, French embassy was your dream. All of it's got to come to a screeching halt. This is urgent. Okay. I see your next comment, Christina. It could be a health crisis, yes, but also very important to remember ourselves. Otherwise, we can't help others. 100%. And so I'm glad you said that, because even in that season, I didn't have the tools that I now have to know how to handle that well. So I 100% did everything I needed to do to take care of her, and my dad and my brother as well. And by the grace of all of us coming together and handling that as best we could figure out how, she pulled through. Of course, I think it's mostly God. My dad helped a ton. My brother helped a ton. But I did not have the mindset tools at all, for sure, or my systems. I didn't have anything figured out. I can't say that. I had a couple things figured out, but not like I do today. And so I was obviously overwhelmed. When you hear your mom's going to pass away within a matter of less than a year, you freak out. I ate all of my feelings. So to go from, a modeling agency to, I think I gained 50 some pounds over the next year, and during that summer was a huge jump. I was a mess. Right. And I went back to college in my junior year and basically just buried myself in extra work. I was ashamed of my body, right? Because I had just come out of telling everybody I was going to get a modeling agency and doing some shows on these things. And now nobody was asking if I was a model. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's beautiful, but I certainly didn't feel beautiful at that time. And I, most importantly, was not stewarding my body well. I was binge eating. It was not a good scene. And buried myself in extra academics, which I don't regret. I took on another major. I took on a vocal performance thing. I took on a minor. I did all this stuff, right, to kind of keep myself so busy that I couldn't feel. And anyway, I won't go too farther down the path, but you're right, Christina. I didn't know how to take care of myself in that season. Now, the beauty of it is, I'm very human. In case you haven't, I'm 100% human, Christina, at all times, still. But that season was one of the many seasons, like every season of my life, probably like many of the seasons of y'all's life. Y'all, what do we come to, friends? You all's life. That's from fatigue. I refuse to use that word. No offense to those of you who love it. I shall stick to my writing degree and English. Okay. So I learned in those seasons the things that I now get to teach, right? That's when body stewardship began. It's recognizing I do not have mastery over my emotional relationship with my body or my logistical systems of how I manage my hunger hormones and therefore my weight and my mood and all these things, right? So many things were birthed in that period of difficulty as I learned to take care of myself in the midst of true life crises. And I'm so grateful for them because of that. However, I didn't want to keep having to learn the same lessons over and over again. In fact, this is perfect because this segues beautifully into what I want to talk about next, which is as we're designing this life, I love to keep rising in levels. Now, look, every now and then something comes out of the woodwork and you have to handle it. And sometimes it can feel like a setback. I will say, though, from my experience, because of the rock solid mindset work I do and I have done and that I live. And when I say that, what I really mean, very honestly, I was thinking this the other day, it's the pillars of the bombshell. Oops, all the glare there. Wrong way. There we go. It's the intimate friendship with God. It's the commitment to a pure heart. It's unshakable security. It's total body love. I mean, it's all the way up all the bombshell pillars that I talk about, right? That's what I've built. And so even when life sidelines you, as it certainly has brought some surprises to me over the last several years, it couldn't, and this is, me bragging on God, it was not able to take me out to the extent that it probably wanted to, speaking of life, as a not, what do they say? Life's a bee. I don't believe that, but every now and then she hits pretty hard, right? So I was shaken, but not taken out because of the ways that I have built my life on these pillars of being a woman, and in my opinion, a woman of God, where there's some things that can't be taken from you. It's really the only way that I can explain it, right? And so my relationship with God, the systems I had then set up for my body care after that season of having to weather that crisis with my mom's health, like these things that I had built and figured out over the years became building blocks that I didn't lose, right? My relationship with men, another one, right? I've certainly been through enough things in life where I could really be bitter, and I'm not. And instead, to not only have had these beautiful dating adventures and relationships over the years, but now this beautiful relationship I'm in now. And it's because my heart retained the knowledge that I had built through the healing journey I was on. I didn't lose it because it couldn't be taken from me. And so you build on these healed parts of you and these truths that are now so firmly entrenched in your being that even if life comes at you with what might seem to be evidence of the contrary, you know the truth too well. And you're not going to be thrown off in how you see yourself and how you see men and how you see love and how you see God and how you see your body and how you see all these things. It can't be shaken. It's too deep in you. And that's what I want for you guys. I'm getting on my little soapbox there. Okay. So all that being said, thank you so much for that question, Christine. If you guys have any other questions, I'm here for them. Happy to answer. But as you type, if you do, I want to lead you into the next kind of practical, logistical way of going about this, right? So you've got your 15-ish things that you want to experience. You have anchored them first, then your constraints, and kind of weave together, okay, well, could this constraint move 1 week? Yeah, it could. Okay, no, it couldn't. Well, then, okay, my dream has to scoot a little bit this way, but the dream is still non-negotiable. Or, my dream is something more nebulous, like getting into a relationship. And maybe I have a dream, I'm making this one up, of, well, I'm not actually technically, but I'm going to make it a little more specific for you guys. This is not really one of my goals right now, but maybe you want to hit a specific revenue number in your business and you want to get into a relationship. Can you do both? Yes. If you decorate your time, acknowledging that they're both priorities and that during these hours, you're going to be, going off, hitting it crazy, doing whatever you need to do to get your business to the next level. And during this number of hours of the day or of the week, you're going to fully switch energies and open yourself to love and prioritize cultivating beautiful relationships, whatever, right? So the point is, it can be done, and we put it on our beautiful blank canvas that we're decorating. Okay. So now you have hopefully a year, right? This is the next step, of course, putting it on your actual calendar of, okay, this is where Paris Fashion Week is. This is where I'm combining years here now. Lavender and Provence is. This is where spring break for my kids is. This is where, my dad's birthday is. This is where I want to take off the month of August. It was one of the best things I did last year. It was amazing. French style, just like, peace, friends. I will see you in September. This is where I also took off the month of December. Those are two, frankly, what you'll often see is as you're writing out your list of experiences every year, I don't know what I just showed you. Did I show you my actual? Anyway, I'm just teasing. As you are writing out your list of experiences year after year, you'll start to notice themes, right? So something that I used to have as an experience, to take August off to travel and have a decadent, restful summer before re-entering everything else in the fall. After a couple of years, I was like, well, this is no longer something I want to experience this year. This is now something I want to have be a rhythm of my life. And that's a huge part of creating that dream life trajectory, right? When you can see that something that you want to experience is in alignment with that dream life you visioned for yourselves at the beginning of this, or, a quarter of the way through, whenever we did that, then you realize, what? Being fully off the clock in August, when all of my French friends are anyway, and traveling to the south of somewhere to be, on a beach in a bikini with a book somewhere completely out of office, is not just something I want this year. It's something I want every year. So now, how am I going to work within the constraints that I may have in other ways to make sure that that happens no matter what? Right? Same thing with December. I don't know that I'll take December off every year. I know that I wanted to this year because my dad was coming with me to Paris to meet my boyfriend. And then my boyfriend was coming to the US to meet the rest of my family. And I didn't have a ton of time in between. And I had a lot of things I wanted to do to make my apartment ready for, that beautiful holiday experience. So I made sure that I cleared my schedule for December. Do I want to do that this year? I don't know, because as I was saying, one of my goals this year, or one of my desired experiences, it's kind of, feels like a little bit of both to me, is to allow myself to write the next edition of my book and make it a 10-year anniversary edition by Christmas, which means it's going to be selling during Christmas. So I may have a more business active Christmas this December, or Lord willing, I may set up so many systems and have hired various assistants for that process so that everything's set, it's hands off, books are selling, but maybe I go live a couple times on social media, but otherwise I'm done, etc. So all that to be said, you have your 15 experiences, put them on the calendar. You might even take a mental note or an actual note of like, I think I might want this one every year, right? Like pumpkin patches aren't one of my top 10 this year. And yet I guarantee that when September rolls around, I'm going to be in the mood. And so I'm going to figure out how and when and where to make that priority happen, even if it's not one of the big themes of this year. Okay. Friends, let's see. I see another question. You talk about goals about 5 years ahead. How often do you look back to evaluate what has happened? What a phenomenal question. Christina, you're on fire today. Okay. How often do I look back? Oh my gosh. I've learned to look back a lot. There was a brief period where looking back was quite painful, not going to lie. I think I needed to allow a lot of forgiveness. I know that I needed to allow a lot of forgiveness of myself and of others so that I could look back and have it be helpful and not just bring up a bunch of tears again. Although I also learned that the tears were important too, right? That there was a purging of grief that needed to occur. And so even though at times I was reluctant to look back and look at the various decisions that I'd made and all the things I didn't know when I was making certain decisions a long time ago, and like, why didn't you, research this more? Or why didn't you know that that's problematic, or all these kinds of things? And I just didn't know, and so I had to do a lot of forgiveness of younger versions of myself. And then I could look back, And so I have done longer versions, if you will, like longer term, like looking 3 years back, looking 5 years back, looking 10 years back a few times. I haven't done it as much as I do these yearly year in review type things, because I do the year in reviews. It feels very finite. It feels very tangible. Like, okay, well, what was last January? What was last February? Where was I on February, 20th or something? Like, it feels like very, tangible. It's really the only word I can think of. Whereas trying to think back 5 years, now I got to go to a different phone. Like, I don't have those pictures available. I don't know. Where was I? What was happening? And I'm usually looking back so that I can plan the next year from a place of clean slate, clean energy, clear priorities, clear on what I liked, what I didn't like, what I want to repeat, what I want to never repeat, what I want to invite in, et cetera. Right. So I don't tend to look back farther frequently. I probably could. In fact, I definitely could. I probably should. I will say the few times that I have looked back farther than just the past year, I have been blown away by how far I've come. And my bet is that if you do, you will too. One of the most interesting things about this 2016 trend on Instagram that I was mentioning earlier is watching some of the top, I don't know if they're top, but they're some of my favorite content creators, models, entrepreneurs, et cetera, show themselves in 2016. And it's like, damn, girl, like, you have come a long way. You know what I mean? Like in hairstyle and in boyfriend and in business, like, get it. So sometimes when we look back farther, it actually is even more affirming of like, wow, I like crushed this thing. I like, dang, the things that, one of the most interesting things to me, and then I'll see what else you guys might be putting in the chat. When I do that is not even just what I was living and what I was wanting, all these kinds of things. What I was wanting is often very powerful to see how many desires I have brought to pass. But even more extraordinary to me is things that I used to fear that I don't fear anymore. Or things that used to worry me, things that I was like, oh my gosh, well, I would say this, or I would do this, or I would start that, but what if such and such or so said blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, who? You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's age. I think it's some life experiences that really wiped out my concern about what other people are thinking, because have you noticed how ridiculous so many human beings are? And it's just like, even those with educations and impressive resumes can be total morons sometimes. And so it's just like, why would I care what they think? Why would I care what anybody thinks? And so one of the most encouraging things to me looking farther back is to see how many things that used to hold me back that do not hold me back anymore. And that's from a lot of personal work, a lot of prayer, a lot of journaling, a lot of coaching, and just being willing to cut strings, man, and not and looking back, and seeing what didn't I do. That's actually a great question you guys can consider if you want as well, even for the shorter term. What didn't I do last year because I was worried people would say? I very much almost didn't do Paris Fashion Week. I mean, I didn't almost, but it crossed my mind to not accept or apply, not even try for Paris Fashion Week, because what the heck are people going to think? Who the hell do I think I am? Mom of two, I mean, almost 40. Come on, right? And so what did we not let ourselves do, or almost not let ourselves do, because we were worried what people were thinking? And now I'm much cleaner with that. So the thought occurred to me and I was like, fuck that thought. Excuse me, there's my language that I warned you about at the beginning, right? Like, first, screw that thought. I'm going to Paris, man. We're going to walk the runway. I don't care what they think. I don't care if I'm in shape or not. Let's go, And so that's one of the most freeing things when I look far back, is like, wow, I have just cut so many things that used to hold me back from living the life I want, which is very much what has birthed this kind of process, the freedom. And maybe I should put it in this process. I hadn't thought of it until right now. So thank you for these questions. But, the freedom from other people's opinions that has allowed me to go for the biggest, boldest, baddest, most bombshell desires that I have. I mean, being in a relationship with a younger, very attractive Frenchman all day, all day. And yet would I I know, I can promise you that I've had thoughts that would have prevented, insecurities that would have kept me from positioning myself to be able to receive the desire. And he didn't have to be younger, but he happens to be, right? So, that's one of the most precious things about looking back, is realizing not just what you have accomplished and what dreams you've brought to pass, but the woman you've grown into, or the man you've grown into, who does not care anymore and will never let other people's little petty opinions and sideline commentaries stop you from living the life of your dreams. Big time. Okay. Let's see. Yes, difference from reliving the past and learning from it. I don't know if there's another word after that. I can't see. It might have gotten cut off. All right, friends, let's move to the last logistical piece, unless I can think of something else. And I'm happy to keep taking questions because I think that's so fun. Next logistical piece, and then I will, I'll tell you in 1 second, Divina, that's a great question too. I want to share the launches that I have coming up that will help you guys step into your next dream life if they feel aligned to you. And if they don't, totally cool. Maybe you can just be inspired by them. I know I have a lot of entrepreneurs who follow me who get inspired by my launches and my marketing strategy, which is very, I want to say, spirit-led. I kind of come up with it as I go because it feels good. Like even just doing this, I was like, do I do this on Zoom? Do I do this, and have it paid? And I was like, no, let's just go live on YouTube and have fun and make it free. Let's do that, So anyway, but the next thing that I do, okay. Now, as I do this, it does tend to be more of a month by month as the year progresses. Okay. So I've shown you my big yearly planner. I think my monthly current planner, which is more like a book. It's more like this, but it's an actual book. I'm currently using Kimberly Wilson's Tranquility du Jour, as in Daily Tranquility Journal. It's magnificent. I've showed it in a story on my Instagram before, and I don't know where it is right now, where I would show you. But once I have my, 15 desires of the year, maybe I have my word of the year to kind of guide me as a theme, remind me of what I'm capable of. I've decorated my time. Oh, I didn't tell you this too. When I have my big wall calendar up, I will actually, because I do travel a lot, I will highlight and color code my physical location. So yellow for DC, blue for California, orange for when I need to take a business trip somewhere, and pink for France because it's love. And then I can literally physically see the amount of time that I'm spending somewhere and kind of be able to feel into, is this a quick trip, or am I going to be able to really settle in here and get stuff done? Is this just a weekend somewhere? Am I doing 2 whole weeks in DC, or 2 whole weeks in California, 7 whole weeks in California, etc.? Anyway, if that's helpful to you guys, but I do make it very visual. So that's why I'm saying also decorating your time. So then as the months come up, okay, month by month, then I am breaking it down into more goals. Okay, so these are some of, I'm sure I need to add to my January dreams and goals. I've got, this is different, okay, from my 15 experiences. And you're like, geez, Jackie, you make a lot of lists. I do make a lot of lists, but that's how I get an extraordinary amount of very aligned things done. So some of my experiences may occasionally show up on a month's to-do list or goals or dreams, or usually what it really is a desires list. These are a little bit more goals. It's in my office. I'm in that energy. In other locations, I think in the planner, for example, I have more January desires. One of my desires was to be curled up in cafes while it snowed writing. Check. You know what I mean? Like beautiful. So these are more goal-like. I have that I want to buy a bunch of, plan out all my travel for the next couple months. I have a couple things I'm going to launch, and I erased the name at the last minute so that I don't reveal too soon. I have a funnel that I want to set up. I want to organize all my tech. I'd love to get a new Mac. I've been working on a PC for the last couple of years, and I miss Apple. Enough said. Let's see. There we have the Pilates that I wanted to be doing. I'm hosting my daughter's birthday party and getting ready for that, and organizing all my photos and videos. So they're not super sexy, right? But they are super sexy to me because that makes me feel like, wow, if I even got 3 to 5 of those checked off in January, I would be doing amazing, right? Light years ahead. And I keep it visually where I can see it. Now I'll take a picture and erase it if I need to use this for training or for coaching or something, this board. But I want it up where my mind doesn't start to take me down other project paths. Based on the kind of funnel of how I designed my year, from what I loved and didn't love about last year to my remembrance of the total dream life direction I want to go in, to the kind of experiences in the next 12 months toward that dream life trajectory that I want to be experiencing in the next 12 months, the constraints that I'm working them in between. Then in January, here are some big key focuses that would absolutely allow me to crush it and move forward very quickly. See what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. So they're more strategic and to-do list like than my 15-ish desires of the year. But you can see, or maybe you can't, so I'll tell you that, one of my goals for this year, one of my goals for my life, one of my, I should say, desires and priorities for my life, because I have already achieved it, but I want to maintain it even as I grow and expand, is to be able to be off the clock a lot. I am a soft girl life chick. You know what I'm saying? I want to sleep in. I want to put on my workout clothes. I want to wander through wherever I am and coffee in hand. And I want to come back and journal, all of this on like a Tuesday. You know what I mean? So I don't want a bunch of obligations in my calendar. What does that mean? How I still need cash flow. I still have travel. I still have various things that I got to get done at certain times. I still want to prioritize my relationships. The only way I can do both, or a piece of the only way I can do both, is through order. If all of my content assets for all the stuff I'm creating on Instagram and Pinterest and all these things is organized, I can move faster. If my whole, I think the top one that you guys can't see is to get this office apartment fully organized. I'm close, but there are some things, you know what I'm saying? So the more order I have, the more systems I have, the faster I can move and the more I can expand without having to put in more effort, right? So these are still in service to the dream life. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? This is not just like, oh, so-and-so's decided that they're going to, launch a planner. And so I'm going to launch a planner. No, it's not I have no desire at this time, maybe next year though, to launch a planner. My desire is expansion of my life in a lot of beautiful personal life ways as well, expansion of my business at the same time, knowing that that's the dream life that I am continually moving toward, already living, and also expanding ever more into. Systems is the only way, right? Like I have to, or it would be, even just with travel, my systems, I swear by them, which is why that experience with my non-rolling carry-on will never happen again. My massage therapist the other day was like, what did you do to yourself? I was like, I don't know, but it was bad. Okay. I see a couple more questions, and then I want to share with you guys some of the things I'm opening up. How important is an accountability partner in all of this? And I also saw your question, Davina, so I'll answer that next. I guess important, but what to look for? Okay. This is such a great question. In fact, Christina, let me answer Davina's question first because it was kind of on the last theme, and then I will definitely get to accountability partner as a topic. How did I get over those fears, Davina? you're discussing the fears of what people are thinking or what people may think, go through hell, survive it, and realize you came out okay. That's what actually happened, but that's not a helpful answer, nor do I wish, any kind of life difficulties on any of you. I think the shortcut is to realize that you don't need their opinions to survive. Okay. I did a lot of coaching work with some of my favorite coaches and mentors. Tanya Lee helped me a lot with this. But one of my big fears for a long time, now I had a lot of little fears, right? Like, oh my gosh, what if the people I used to work with think that I'm, stupid for starting a blog or a coaching business? Like, who do I think I am? I was so young at that time. I'm still so young, let's be clear. But at, 23, 24, I was like, what right do I have to be telling people what they should do better with their body care or whatever? I hadn't had children yet and all that stuff. So I had these floating little fears, these higher level, like that, like, oh my gosh, what if they think I'm stupid for starting a blog? Let's just use that as an example. And yet what was beneath that, which is what my coaches helped me to figure out, was a fear of survival. Now, I know you might be like, how do you go from being embarrassed about having a blog to fearing for your life? But we're often programmed, okay, and not necessarily for all bad reasons, but it happens that if people aren't happy with us, we might actually die. I know you're like, there's got to be a couple connecting pieces there. And there are, right? Because you can take this back historically, especially women, but I think this is true for men as well, right? If there was a sense or a way in which you were not doing what you were supposed to, you were not doing what was maybe socially accepted or, I don't know, approved by the king or whatever it is, then you could be exiled. And if you were exiled, right, I'm thinking of like Queen, is it Vashti? Who's the one who was before Esther, right? Like she didn't come when the king said come and he threw her out of the kingdom. What happens when you're thrown out of the kingdom back before there's plumbing and Wi-Fi and online businesses? Not good things. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if this is deeply in our subconscious of if I don't comply, I might die. I'm not going to get into more recent things, but there's plenty of people where that mindset still lives well, right? It's still alive and well. Okay. So if you look under the fears of worrying what people will think, the pathway to do this in a much more orderly coaching style way, rather than just fear and survival, is to say, why, what's the worst that can happen if people don't like that I started a blog? And what worked very well for me was to categorize, I'm just using this blog obviously as an example, the groups of people who would have opinions, right? Maybe I thought my family would think one thing. Maybe I thought my previous employers or colleagues would think one thing. Maybe I thought my people who I went to school with and from college would think one thing. Maybe I thought, I don't know, the public at large who didn't know me yet would think one thing. Maybe I thought my close friends or relationships would think one thing. And I had different columns for different fears that I had for all of these people groups. Okay. What was I afraid they would think? Then underneath what I was afraid they would think, I would write, what happens if they think that? So, in other words, right? So what? What happens if, making this up again, although it was a very definite fear at the time, or insecurity, I should say, it's not a real fear, but I would think like, what if the people who were with me in college, where I got all these impressive degrees at these big universities, are like, she started a blog and she's holding up a green juice and she calls herself a coach? Like, that's pathetic, right? Okay, so what? Well, they might not decide to buy my courses and they might not want to work with me, so I might not make money from them. Okay, right? Or they may be laughing at me, right? And at the time, these things like filled me with a sense of, oh my gosh, that would be awful. And then as I essentially decided, I'm not going to not live my life out of fear of people who sometimes I don't even like might be thinking when they might not be thinking this at all. And so I just took the next couple steps forward, didn't die. No, they didn't buy my stuff, but maybe they didn't even see it. Like, this was just one column. So I did this with each column. What it came down to, Davina, is that the heavy hitting columns were those who were very close to me and who were financially connected to me. That's what it came down to. And so this is what the coach helped me figure out, is that my fear of survival was a sense of basically still a modern day exile. What if people who are in some way connected to my everyday well-being, if you will, right? The things that you need money to pay for, so heavily disproved that I was somehow punished. That was my fear. And so I was holding myself back from, essentially a fear of what if I'm kind of cut out from what I've currently known that is keeping me like, that provides. Do you know what I'm saying? And so the opinion of my parents in that vein was something that was weighing much more heavily than college friends or anything like that. And so that's what I mean, where the underlying fear was survival. Vasti, thank you so much, Davina. Queen Vasti. So when I recognized that, then the next work was to take to God, okay, my fear of survival. It was to take to God the awareness that I was basically putting anybody above him and thinking that if such and such doesn't approve, I might perish, right? Again, I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit, but that's kind of, our animal brain kicks in, and like that's where the fear lives, even though the logic is like, it's highly unlikely, right? But if that's what we've been thinking for a long time, that's what we're used to thinking, right? And we're going to keep thinking it. So I had to then bring that to the foot of the cross, as they say, and be like, Lord, I'm essentially, I can see now, I'm making other sources of provision you, as if they're at the same level as you, or you can't control, like, as in essentially, God, you can't provide me or protect for me. You can't provide me or provide for me, there it is, or protect me if I'm following your assignment, because other humans are more powerful than you, God. That was the belief. And I don't know what beliefs you guys have here. I know many people who follow me are believers, but you can see that that's flawed, right? You can see that the belief of like other humans might be more powerful than God. And so God may be like, I don't know, sweetheart. I mean, you started that blog. I was trying to like keep you alive. And now you're going to be thrown to the wolves, and there's nothing I can do about it because these people are way more powerful than I am, right? Said God never. So then it came down to my, what I call unconscious theology, right? Of like, I am fearing people more than I'm fearing God. And I need to switch that. So long explanation there, Davina, 100%. I hope that was helpful. Okay. One more question, and then I'm going to get into some of the cool things that I'm opening up for you guys. Let's see. Where did it go? An accountability partner. Okay. I'm going to be real with you, Christina. I'm now real and blunt. I was thinking, how should I phrase this? I'm just going to phrase it the way it came to my mind. I hate accountability partners. I'm sorry. I do. And that doesn't mean they're bad. That just means it's not my style. I am a lone wolf when I want to accomplish a goal. I kind of get quiet and I disappear a little bit, and I tuck myself away with my tea and my classical music, background jazz, whatever, and my big whiteboard and all my planners, and I start to design. Now, that's to me the creative mode. Living it out, I mean, I hate to say I am my own accountability partner, but I take so much pleasure in living beautiful things. I think that's pretty obvious. Who wouldn't, right? But I deeply enjoy the process of formulating an idea, bringing it into existence through planning and figuring out, okay, how could this work? Where could it work? When could it work? What would I need? What would the cash flow? What would the location? What would the travel, et cetera? And then living it and sitting in the cafe in Paris, or being on a river cruise with my love in Paris and being like, yeah, I did this. You know what I mean? Now, in his defense, he had the idea and he bought the tickets, but I was the one who was like, I am going to go to France this week. Let's go. So to me, I think it's the feedback loop. The feedback loop is so pleasurable for me. And there's dopamine and there's serotonin and there's all these things, and I always confuse them, but whatever it is, it's so much fun for me to recognize the power and agency and co-creative ability that I have over my life. Amen. Thank you, Lord, that I don't need an accountability partner, essentially, because I am so, I get such a rush, I guess. And it's not even a rush, because it's not like I'm in a rush. It's more of a quiet, deep embodied joy from witnessing the ability to move from idea to execution to enjoyment. And then I'm just like, that was awesome. Let's do it again. So here we are in January, and I'm already thinking February. February is Valentine's Day. And this is, and I'm like, it's so much fun to me. So that's one reason I don't feel like I need one. I'll say this too, and I can see you in the chat. You're not the only one hating it. Girl, no wonder you like my community. I'm going to say this boldly, but with deep love, because I think probably it's a pretty common experience. I have had some excellent accountability partners. I had one actually in a program called the 90-Day Year. And we're still friends. This was years ago, and we held each other accountable, but she was chill. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, accountability partners annoy me. In a couple occasions, I can't think of any off the top of my bat, but I know it's happened. There's been weird dynamics come up after a while of like competition or jealousy or lack of confidentiality, where it's just like, no, I'd rather do my own thing. Now, I have had really beautiful experiences in masterminds. I've had magnificent friendships develop in masterminds, but it wasn't so much an accountability relationship. It was more of a witnessing, right? It was women who we were all held, into confidentiality by a contract. But that was already the energy we were coming in with. We wanted a sacred, safe space for us to unravel a little and reconstruct our lives. And therefore we honored that for each other as well. So that has been beautiful, but that was like, nobody was texting me. And then this is probably just my style. I don't want to be talked to. I know I talk for a living, and that's why then I close it and I'm done, right? Leave me alone. I'm just kidding. Kind of. But I don't want to be on long phone calls. I don't want people texting me every day being like, did you do the thing? Like, no, I slept in. Leave me alone. Sleeping in felt more aligned. And that's really the reason, is because I don't live my life, as you can tell by this decorate your blank canvas of a life process. I don't live by checklists. Well, occasionally I make a list, but I don't live by check boxes, I should say, and a sense of pressure or over structuring or holding myself accountable to things that don't work for me. I know this because I used to actually try to do that toward the end of high school. I had all of these lists. This is probably where this love of lists and journals began, of like, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to do Pilates downstairs or whatever. Calisthenics. I don't think I even knew Pilates existed yet. Then I'm going to get on the school bus. We're talking high school. Okay. I'm going to eat my whey protein breakfast, or whatever. Was I ever waking up at 5 when I, knew that what I actually needed to do was wake up at 6 and rush out the door as fast as I can? No, So I learned to not put external arbitrary, it's really what it is, arbitrary pressures and structures on myself that I did not want to do. Not just because they didn't work, but because sometimes I don't want to say they harmed anything, but at the time, I've fortunately long outgrown this, but they would often create a cycle of self-berating and being upset with myself or beating myself up, mentally for having not done it perfectly. And I had to really unlearn that. And I have very thoroughly. And so I have no desire to go back into that. And I also have no desire to invite anyone in who, even out of the goodness of their heart, checking in on me if I did something. Again, if I want the desire badly enough, no one is going to stop me from getting it, unless it's literally, morally wrong. And I don't have desires that are morally wrong, because in my opinion, those aren't the desires from God. They're a thought that passes through your mind and you don't act on it, right? So it's not something that requires accountability. And then I'm going to do my own natural flow. Like if I have a desire, for example, to strengthen my core through Pilates classes or whatever, but I came back from France and I know I'm just wiped the next day, because I think it was a 24-hour day between catching the train in Lille, getting on a flight in France, getting off in New York, getting on another flight delay, landing in DC, getting to the apartment. It was a long day. There's no way I'm going to get up and go to the gym the next morning. I know my flow. I know my systems. I know my structures. I need a rest day. I will, I don't know. I don't know when I'll want to get up and exercise. When my body tells me, that's when I will. So I don't want someone who's holding me accountable to an external structure, because I follow an internal flow that works so much better for me and allows me to accomplish my goals. There it is. But many people like accountability partners. If I were to have one, I would look for someone who works the same way I do. Like that woman from years ago where she was just chill. We could be like, yo, I'm going to take a week off because I feel like taking a week off. So just letting you know, I'll check in with you then. Awesome. No worries. Enjoy your rest. Not somebody who's anal and type A and box checking and trying to push you when you don't need to be pushed. You need actually a nap. Leave me alone. Right? So those are my thoughts. Let's see. People have different planning blueprints. Exactly. And I love the growing inside masterminds and learning from bombshells. Oh, that's awesome. All right, Christina. So good. Okay, you guys. So I do my monthly lists and have goals as I move forward through the year. And that creates a beautiful year. I don't know what else to say. And then we get toward the end of the year where I've done this beautiful, it's like a funnel, like I was saying. And I look back and it's like, holy smokes. Did everything that I had on my list happen? Very probably not. But that's okay because chances are a lot of them did, and more unexpected beauty came in that I didn't even plan for because I was in the energy of creating a life on the trajectory of the dream life that I have in mind. I wasn't trying to fit everything into a year. I was trying to head in the direction of joy, peace, beauty, truth, family, freedom, all the things, right? My dream life priorities. And so that's one of the ways I'm able to hold things loosely. Even though I fight hard for the dreams and make them non-negotiable, I'm not going to argue with life or with God or beat myself up if it goes a little bit differently because I'm not trying to get through all of my check boxes. I'm trying to make sure that I maintain alignment. I heard a metaphor this morning, like if a plane takes off from Washington, it wants to go to LA, but it's a couple degrees off, it's going to end up in San Francisco, which is not nearly as nice as LA. I'm sorry, personal preference. Just saying, just kidding, right? Like my number one mission is to maintain alignment with the overall long-term dream, even if that means short-term sacrifices or short-term, it's not as exciting as it could be now. I don't care because I'm not going to burn out. I'm not going to get off track. I'm not going to get distracted by comparison, competition, insecurity, any of these things. I'm going for LA. You know what I mean? I'm going for the dream life. And my check-ins, rather than check boxes, are to make sure that my decisions and my priorities are headed in that direction. And that's why every now and then I, kind of disappear. People don't know where I went or what I'm up to. And then I pop out with, I'm going to say a French boyfriend. I'm just kidding, but not really, right? Like with something that is in the trajectory. And I'm very clear about it. I'm very open with you guys generally as far as what my priorities are. My personal life has been top priority for years. And eventually, when your actions are in alignment with your goals, with your desires, I should say, with your top, deepest dream life desires, there will be a harvest season if you don't give up. There were so many times for that particular desire that I wanted to give up. You have another disappointment, another person who makes promises and doesn't show up, another person who doesn't match your effort, another person, it's like, but the desire was so strong that I kept going back to position myself to be able to receive it rather than out of heartbreak, giving up, pulling back, running away, and shutting down, which I've also done in the past. So I understand that and no judgment. Okay. So with all of that, I hope that was helpful. Was that helpful? I hope it was helpful. And I hope it was fun. And I hope you now see your life as like, oh, this is going to be so cool. I want to share with you guys two brand new things that I'm opening up. If you want more information about either, you're always welcome to message me. I'm going to share a couple details here though now. One of them is more business and one of them is more personal life, okay? Although they both are inevitably, if you're in my world, going to be a blend because I don't believe in building a business that doesn't get you to your personal life, dream life trajectory. And I don't believe in building a personal life that for whatever reason would make your other goals impossible, right? It's all holistic in my world. So slightly different focuses though. The first is a coaching program that I'm calling the Dream Life Accelerator. Okay. Dream Life Accelerator is, I am figuring out how long I want it to go. I'm thinking about 6 to 8 weeks. Maybe we go a little bit longer, but it's putting all of this into practice and me being your guide, your mentor, as you become deeply honest with yourself and identify what your dream life is, and then figure out those experiences, both in the long run and in the short run, and make sure that you're creating something on that trajectory. So beautiful, probably Zoom calls, private, confidential, very designed to make the dream real. It's really what it comes down to, right? Designed to pull what feels like this incredible, extraordinary dream into a tangible reality this year. Okay. It's 1/3 of the price it's going to be for the next, let's say, week or so. So if you want details on that, it's an incredibly low investment for my coaching. My coaching's 5 figures at this point. Am I that's the right math? 5 figures. This is 3 figures, and it's a low 3 figures, and that's insane. But it's only for the next week or so. Okay. So if you want to be part of the Dream Life Accelerator, it would be my honor. I'm doing it at that price point because I really want to see as many people as possible living the life they want. I have so many people who I know, friends, colleagues, etc., who are making millions of dollars, who will say to me, I want your life. And I'm like, thank you. I want my life too. That's why I'm living it. And what I don't say is like, why don't you want yours? Why haven't you created? I mean, gosh, Louise, there's so many people in the world who I understand don't have the means to create something better for themselves because just survival is hard enough. But if you're making millions of dollars and you're in a first world country and you don't like your life, what are you doing? What are you doing? So I don't want to get on another soapbox there, but my point is I have created something beautiful, even with very tricky logistics. And I would be honored to walk you through creating the trajectory of a year that leads to your dream life. It would be a joy. And then the second launch piece is I have long been asked I haven't long been asked to coach in business. I have coached in business for, probably over 10 years now. People pretty much as soon as I started my business started asking me advice about starting an online business. And I've coached one-on-one, right? I've coached a lot of people through all of the things, webinars, offers, speaking, marketing, branding, hiring VAs, setting up entire systems and structures inside their business to streamline. I have so many processes and frameworks. And as I've been working with them one-on-one, what I've been noticing, especially over this last year, is being like, okay, but what's the pathway? I'm like, pathway? What do you mean, what's the pathway? And what they mean is, well, so-and-so has this path, and they recommend that you do this, and this person says you should do this. What's the Jackie pathway? Like, I really resonate with the way that you do life and you do business, and I like your energy, and I like the life you've created. Like, what's your pathway? I'm like, well, and it's made me think, do I have a pathway? And as soon as I asked myself that question, it was like, damn straight you have a pathway. Of course I have a pathway. I just haven't necessarily even articulated it to myself because it's become so second nature over the years. How I design first my life, then the business that supports that life, then the cash flow that supports that business, and the offers that support that cash flow, and the delivery that supports the life I want to live. So I don't start to hate my life like these people who are, making millions and be like, I wish I were you. Like, well, then we need some restructuring, right? So part of me is like, do I say it right now? I'm going to say it right now. I'm opening a brand new business mastermind called $1 Million Empire. My goal in this is to cut through so much of the cookie cutter crap that people are being force fed in the online business and coaching world, where they're being sold systems that don't suit them. They're being sold delivery formats that take them away from the life they actually want to lead. And they're being sold ways of selling things and things to sell that aren't their superpower. I was just talking to someone the other day who was trying to fit himself into a box because he'd been told that was the box that would sell. And as soon as, he was done saying it hasn't been working, but people keep coming to me for this, I was like, that's because, and for him, he's a luxury life coach. He's not a little, try to fix this, he's not a commodity coach. And I say that with love, right? Because there's a lot of people out there selling a result, and it's not even, and there's so many people doing it. But when you tap into what you are here on earth to do, and then you figure out how to market it. Okay. So in this Empire program, we're going to be talking about your marketing vehicle. For some of you who are not interested in online business or who don't know these terms, hang in there with me because I'm going to do a beautiful closing for us in a minute. But for those of you who do, right, your marketing vehicle needs to fit you. You guys have seen my marketing vehicle if you follow me on Instagram. It's lifestyle content because I like my life. And So I share it. And that makes people be like, how do I have a life like you? Whether it's designing their personal life, stepping into a relationship, beautiful body care, or building a business that supports their dream life instead of stealing their dream life, right? So we're having a marketing vehicle that fits you. And there are many. I actually have somewhere in my journal, one of my other journals, all of the different ways to attract attention on the internet. And there are many, and they all work. It's just about figuring out what is right for you. What do you love? What are people already drawn to you for? Like, finding yourself in this sea of different ways to attract attention online. Okay. So a customized marketing vehicle, then a customized sales vehicle. What is a sales vehicle? A sales vehicle is how you let people know about what you're doing. This right now technically could be considered a sales vehicle, although it's pretty informal. It was more of a hangout. But there are webinars, there are email marketing, there's, DMs in social media, there's cold calling, there's sales teams, there's, master classes, there's challenges, there's like all of these things that people are doing right now. And some people are doing a sales vehicle that they hate, right? One of the things I was happy to leave behind in 2025 is the number of hours that I spent on Zoom. Now, I say this actually, to be accurate, I was already being paid for those hours. Let me be clear. But there are systems out there that teach people to spend hours on Zoom for free, like having not been paid yet. And let me be clear, some people like that. I am not saying it's wrong. I'm definitely not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying I was talking to a girlfriend the other day. I was like, never. Yeah, if I am going to be in hardcore sales mode, which I'm not right now, for example, I'm enjoying this so much with you guys. And this is a process that I do for myself anyway. But if I were, anyway, there are things that are out there that don't fit all people. So you need a marketing vehicle that you love and that works for you. You need a sales vehicle that you love and works for you. And you need a delivery vehicle that you love and that works for you. Okay. For a long time, well, I'll reveal more things in the future. But there's different ways of serving your clients that fit you in different life eras, different personality types. And I have done all of them. It's almost insane. I've done in-person intensives. I've done live events. I've done my own live events. I've done other people's live events. I've done, one-on-one coaching. I've done group coaching. I've done memberships. I've written books. I've done courses. I've been in business for 12 years, more maybe now. Okay. So this Empire program will have a framework. It'll have a pathway. It's had many other things that I'm not going to reveal yet. But the last thing that I will say, and then I'll tell you how to get more info about it if you want. Hi, Lauren, Portugal. Let's go. Christina, amazing. So glad. I know it is late there in Denmark. Have a good night. There's different levels to this program. Okay. So we're going to have the Mavericks. The $1 Million Mavericks. Those are those of you or those people out there, if you've got friends, let them know, who are starting an online business, who have not yet maybe hit the 6-figure mark or the multiple 6-figure mark, but they've got a dream. They got a dream. They've got a dream life. They know that an online business is one of the vehicles to their dream life. And they've got passion and they've got skills and they don't even know where to begin, or they have begun and it hasn't gotten traction yet. They don't yet have clarity on who they're serving, how they're selling, how they're getting attention, and they need a guide. Now, at each of these levels, you will be getting coaching with me, which I think is very important. Okay. And again, no shade. Lots of people in the coaching industry do things lots of different ways. I was once in a mastermind where I signed up and, as things went along, they pivoted a little. And before I knew it, I was learning from someone who hadn't even accomplished as much as I had yet. Right. And I was just like, no, we're not putting money toward this. Really nice person, happy to be your friend, not paying for coaching from an amateur. I'm not paying for coaching from an amateur, period. If you've done a couple things and you've learned a system, awesome, but that's not for me. So we have the Mavericks. Then we have the Masters, the $1 Million Masters. These are people who have traction, who've been on the internet for a minute or maybe a couple minutes, and they're getting better and better at what they're doing and how they're serving and learning. And yet it's not, it actually could be working, but they want to scale it, right? They want to build, and they want to build, very importantly, in a way that serves that dream life that they have, right? They don't want to build something that suddenly is going to be this massive time, energy, stress suck, right? They don't want to throw away their freedom for this freedom-based business that they've built. So they want to build and they want to grow, but they want to do it strategically, selectively, savvily. And those are the masters who are in mastery and who are learning mastery even more. Then there's the moguls, okay? The $1 million moguls are those who have done at least $1 million online, and they're the bosses. They've had their own businesses. They've been running whatever the heck they've been running, and it's been working. And now we're getting highly, again, strategic, selective, savvy about scaling even more. And maybe they don't even want a bigger business. Maybe they do, but maybe they don't. Maybe they want to step out of the business, but allow it to keep running. Maybe they want to have more time off. Maybe they want sabbaticals. Maybe they want more travel. Maybe they want more time with their family, but they're afraid that if they step off the hamster wheel of what they've already built, it will fall apart and the cash flow will collapse. You guys already know my life is my priority. My business is here to serve it. And so I want to teach you how to do that and do it well. All of these levels will also always be looking at identity shifts at your personal life to the extent that you want to share it with me, no worries, right? But often when people are struggling with maybe some kind of mindset piece, it's because there's someone in the back who's feeding them untrue things about themselves. So this is going to be very holistic, but it is designed not actually to make you $1 million, in case you haven't already. I actually have this passion. And then in a moment, I'll wrap this beautiful evening we've had here together. I have this passion for turning entrepreneurs into people who can give $1 million away. So you may have seen me talk about this or write about this before, but there's a beautiful award in the ClickFunnels community called Liberate and Educate, or the Two Heart Award. And the idea is that if a business has given $1 million away to a charity, they get the Liberate and Educate, or the Two Heart Award. Only, the last time I checked, which is less than a year ago, only 11 people have ever received that award. Meanwhile, thousands have received the make their own $1 million, or the hit 10 million, or the 100 million, or I don't even know, many amounts of money. Why have only 11 people? Now, look, a lot of it is actual revenue, right? In order to be able to give $1 million away, you've got to have a lot more than $1 million coming in, right? Because you've got cash flow and expenses in your own life and all these kinds of things. But I want to create entrepreneurs who are so legacy focused, who are designing something that is scalable and leveraged to the point that that is a very realistic dream. Okay, so when I say $1 million, yes, of course, I want you to hit all kinds of financial goals for yourself, your family, your business, but we're aiming way beyond. We want to be able to give $1 million back. So what does it mean to create the business, to create the life, to create the leverage, to create the legacy that allows us to do that? Okay, so that's $1 Million Empire. We're actually making empires for other people. I will explain more in the future. I'll probably do a whole training when I kind of do a little mini reveal of that framework. May or may not be one of the things on the board up there. Might not be. But what I am doing right now is I am selling lifetime access, which will not necessarily be a thing that I do in the future. I haven't made up my mind yet, but if I do sell lifetime access in the future, it will be at its actual price. Right now, it's like half to a third of the price, depending on the level that you jump in at. Yes, there's a monthly. Yes, there's a yearly, but right now we're focused on lifetime. Of course, you can jump in at all three levels. Mavericks, Masters, Moguls, they are different price points. They get different levels of access to me. All of them get levels of access to me. All of them get levels of access to the frameworks and the beautiful pathway that I cannot wait to reveal to you guys about how to build your own custom empire. Calm, Jackie. But, lifetime access right now is at a massive discount, half or even a third, depends on if you have worked with me in my container or on other people's containers, that massive lifetime access discount, okay? And that means you're in $1 Million Empire for life. And there's so much more that I'm gonna be bringing to this over the years. So it's an incredibly good idea. If you love my work, my energy, you guys know I'm not going anywhere. I've been on the internet for 12 years. Right? This is my work. This is what I do. I have built businesses successfully in health, in business, and in relationship niches over and over while living the life of my dreams because I've got my eye on that trajectory. So if either of those are of interest to you, the Dream Life Accelerator coaching program or the $1 Million Empire Business Mastermind with its 3 different levels, let me know, and I'm happy to share details with you and chat if it's right for you. But From there, friends, let me send us off on this gorgeous evening, and I'm then going to go collect my children. So excited about it. Oh, I always feel like praying when I'm finishing something, especially if we went deep. So I just will say, Lord, thank you so much for this time. Thank you so much for the internet. Thank you so much for the women and the men and the people all over the globe who are able to connect and collaborate and remember the conviction and the courage and the reason why they came, why they accepted the assignment to come to earth to walk in their destiny that you laid out for them, God. And I pray that I would be a leader and a guide. Christina, thank you so much for that comment. You say you have walked the walk, talked the talk. Fantastic energy today, as always. Thank you so much, Christina. It's a delight to see you and have you here. So thank you for that. Thank you, Davina. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, all of you guys who are here. And those of you who watch the replay, same to you. Thank you so much for not just spending this time here with me, but spending this time here on yourself, because I so deeply believe that the bombshells and the bosses of the world who walk in alignment with their divine assignments, and I think there are many. I think we have, business and career assignments. I think we have family assignments, romantic assignments, health assignments, evangelism, if that's your thing, assignments, faith assignments. It's such an honor to be a human. And at the same time, I'm so aware of all of the heartache and hardship on earth, which is why I'm so excited to build up people who are living toward the trajectory of their freedom and their truth, the truth, in my opinion. You do you. And also equipping themselves and others to be able to give back in massive ways and massive amounts, whether that's financial or otherwise. So many of my mentors who I love and respect so much will say that after a while, money gets boring. When your bills are paid and, you just don't have any worries, money gets boring. Now, until then, money is not boring, right? You want to get your bills paid. But once you're there, contribution is really the only thing that gives you a rush, the only deep fulfillment. And so I am so excited to be stepping into the year of the empire with you all. Thank you for witnessing my journey. I say that so sincerely. Thank you for those of you who have been here with me for years, over a decade. It is not taken lightly. Thank you for holding space, quite frankly, even on, in my email newsletter and in my courses and on my social media, of the journey that I have walked, of the divine assignments that I've said yes to, even when I didn't know that I'd said yes, and being here and sending love and being as wonderful as you are. And thank you for what you're doing in the world. I have every bit of conviction that you have everything it takes to live out every assignment that is on your life, to walk fully and boldly and joyfully under God's protection into your destiny. And I'm happy to do it alongside you and delighted to be your friend here on the internet and sometimes in real life too. I hope I get to meet more of you in person in the future too. I send you all so much love. Thank you for being here with me. Have a beautiful rest of your weekend, an outstanding 2026, and let's go live our dream life, friends. Nobody's going to do it with us. Nobody's going to do it for us. Nobody's going to do it but us. But God has given us everything we need, and He's calling us. Let's go. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone. You're so welcome.